Chapter 921. When Han Yunshi quoted the price of 700 million, Jia Dai's face was filled with shock, but his heart was calm. His Highness had long sent someone to tell him the amount. In contrast, the head elder looked calm on the surface, but his heart was in turmoil. While Myriad Merchant Hall could afford it, the risk was far too great. If Uncle Chung hadn't mentioned Ning Chung, he would never have agreed. Since Madame Han has offered such a sky-high price, she must like these two courtyards very much. Since that's the case, it's fine if the old man breaks his promise. Jia Dai pretended to sigh, even though he'd gotten a bargain. The head elder was angry in his heart, but he didn't show it. Instead, he said, "Since that's the case, I ask old Master Dai to show the deed to my family's madam for inspection." The head elder had to guard against this Jia Dai trying to sell two goods at once. Since they decided to buy the land, they had to get the deed in hand this time to avoid any more mishaps. Moreover, it was urgent to reopen the gambling house. They had to take advantage of the fact that the gamblers in the black market hadn't all left yet to lure them back. If they delayed any longer, they'd have to spend all sorts of resources to attract more gamblers. Jia Dai quickly went to retrieve the deed and showed it to Han Yunshi to make sure there were no mistakes. Jia Dai probed, "Madam Han, if there's no problem with this deed, can old Master Dai, 700 million is no small sum. I don't know if you can pay half of it first and pay the rest at a later date." The head elder made it sound so nice, but it could be summed up in 2 words. He wanted to put the debt on credit. Jia Dai's face immediately turned gloomy as he snatched the deed from Han Yunshi's hands. Cold, he said, "Everyone, Jia Dai, don't put things on credit." The head elder's face alternated between red and white, both embarrassed and angry. Whether it was Cloud Realm Trade Consortium or Myriad Merchant Hall, when had anyone ever dared to say such things? It was simply a disgrace. The head elder suddenly felt like a dog being bullied by a dog. Before he could speak, Uncle Chung said unhappily, "Old Master Jia, what do you mean by this? Are you afraid that we can't afford it?" As soon as Uncle Chung spoke, Han Yunshi, who was about to speak, stopped talking. She didn't expect Uncle Chung to be more anxious than her. Thinking about it, it made sense. Uncle Chung wanted to get a commission, so he naturally had to work hard to make the transaction pay in full. A cold glint flashed through Han Yunshi's eyes as she watched calmly. If it wasn't for the fact that you couldn't afford it, why would you only pay half up front? Jia Dai's tone was sarcastic. She deliberately looked at Han Yunshi and said, "I thought Mrs. Han was a generous person. I didn't expect. If you only intend to pay half of the bill, then I'm sorry. Everyone, please return." "Master Jia, I'm afraid you've misunderstood." The great elder couldn't help but say, "What I mean is that we pay half of the money first and settle this matter. Today and tomorrow, our madam will personally visit the 2 gardens. If there are no major problems, she will pay the remaining half of the money." The great elder's words gave himself and Han Yunshi a great platform to step down from. It also meant that he agreed to pay in full. Jia Dai's expression immediately returned to its original amiable and good-natured appearance. If that's the case, then it's easy to talk about it. There's no need to pay the deposit first. Old man will take you to visit the 2 gardens now. Han Yunshi whispered to the great elder, "That's the only way. Send someone back to prepare the money. We'll walk around the gardens. When we go back, we can also discuss the remodeling. I just took a look along the way, and the garden shouldn't have changed much." The great elder's heart was filled with helplessness. He felt that this matter was happening too quickly, and it made him a little flustered. However, if they didn't act quickly and someone else beat them to it, then it would be very difficult for them to make a comeback. Princess, this subordinate, also took a serious look just now. "Even the few courtyards we passed by don't need to be remodeled. As long as we transport the things from the casino over, we can use them directly." The great elder said in a low voice, "That's good. This garden is big, so it's not impossible to use the courtyards in front first. We could discuss the remodeling slowly," Han Yunshi said in a low voice. That was what the great elder meant. He didn't want to miss this business opportunity the most. Just like that, Han Yunshi's group, accompanied by Jia Dai and a few servants, finished touring South Jew Garden at night. The actual layout of South Jew Garden was much better than what they had seen on the drawings. There were very few places that needed to be remodeled, and they were all small projects. The Great Elder had been hoping to find some major damage so that he could bargain with Jia Dai. Unfortunately, this garden was so well maintained that he had no chance at all. After dinner, Jia Dai warmly invited them to stay in South Jew Garden for the night, and they would set off for West Jade Garden tomorrow. It would take at least half a day to travel from South Jew Garden to West Jade Garden. Princess, stay here for the night. If we return to Myriad Merchant Hall, we'll have to walk for another 4 hours tomorrow, the Great Elder advised. Han Yunchi hesitated for a moment, then said, "We're not going back to Myriad Merchant Hall, and we're not staying here. Uncle Chung, go tell Master Jia that we're in a hurry. We'll rush to West Jade Garden tonight. Tomorrow, we'll rest in West Jade Garden for a while, and then immediately visit the garden. Princess, your health is more important," the Great Elder advised with concern. "It's fine. I can sleep in the carriage." Han Yunchi insisted. Long Fei Ye's lonely eyes made her not want to delay any longer. She couldn't wait to find Bai Yanqing to settle the score. Uncle Chung was also impatient. He couldn't rest easy until he destroyed Deacon Jin's mouth. He immediately went to find Jia Dai to tell him. Jia Dai naturally agreed and immediately went to arrange a carriage. However, just as he finished preparing everything, Su Donglin suddenly appeared out of thin air. "Elder Jia, long time no see." Su Donglin hugged his sword and leaned against the wall. Jia Dai was surprised to see him. "Your Highness is here too." His Highness is still at the black market. "I just came to tell you that the princess is used to riding in His Highness' carriage. You have to arrange a comfortable one for her." If the princess is bumped. Before Su Donglin could finish, Jia Dai nodded repeatedly. "Understood, understood. I've already instructed the West Jade Garden to prepare a room in Bright Moon Hotel for the princess." Only then did Su Donglin disappear, satisfied. Just like that, Han Yunchi and the others rushed to West Jade Garden through the night, while Long Fei Yi met with Chu Tianyin at East Origin Hall. "I spent a lot of effort to find a way to have that goshawk lead the way. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, he was already gone," Chu Tianyin said calmly. These days, he didn't pay attention to the political situation, nor did he pay attention to the Western Zhou Emperor's mobilization of the army. He was almost entirely focused on finding Gu Beiwei. He kept the goshawk that delivered the letter for Gu Beiwei. He didn't know who raised that goshawk. He used all kinds of methods and found someone who understood the language of beasts. A few days ago, he finally succeeded in getting the goshawk to lead the way. Unfortunately, by the time he found the valley, the courtyard in the valley was already empty. "Can you determine when he left?" Long Fei Yi asked. "At least a month. He should have moved to another place," Chu Tianyin said seriously. Long Fei Yi didn't hide anything and told Chu Tianyin about their situation at Black Tower. Chu Tianyin's brows furrowed deeper as he listened. "If that's the case, then it's very likely that Bai Yanqing is near the three-way black market. I've already sent people to secretly search for places where he could easily hide, but unfortunately there's been no news so far," Long Fei Yi said calmly. "What do you think about Ning Cheng?" Long Fei Yi asked. Chu Tianyin hated Ning Cheng to the core. Even though Long Fei Yi asked him so directly, he still avoided the question. "Long Fei Yi, my Chu clan has no right to interfere in the affairs of Eastern and Western Qin, and I have no interest in doing so. I only hope that you can keep your promise and release my 2 Chu clan elders." Chu Tianyin was quite open-minded. As traitors, the Chu clan had no right to call themselves part of Western Qin's camp. He also knew that the East Qin camp would never truly accept them. He only hoped that Gu Beiwei would be safe. He only hoped that his father and uncle would regain their freedom. This was the only thing he could do for the Chu clan. Long Fei Yi liked Chu Tianyin's attitude very much. He said calmly, "I heard that Western Zhou's Emperor Kong Cheng has been mobilizing his troops recently. Does he intend to take away your military power?" Chu Tianyin snorted coldly. "That depends on whether he can take it away." "Very good. You don't have to worry about Gu Beiwei. Just lead your Western Qin troops well. This king will not treat your father and uncle unfairly," Long Fei Yi said calmly. You mean, you really want to go to war with Northern Li? Chu Tianyin asked curiously. Whether it's Northern Li or Jun Yixie, this war is inevitable. It has nothing to do with Eastern and Western Qin, Long Fei Yi said. Although Eastern and Western Qin was currently the biggest problem, he didn't just see the Eastern and Western Qin in front of him. He saw far and his heart was big. Northern Li and even the winter crow behind the snowy mountains were all in his eyes. He was only temporarily slowing down for the sake of a woman. Chu Tianyin hesitated for a moment, then asked tentatively, Long Fei Yi, I want to see my father. Long Fei Yi looked up and said mercilessly, You'll never see the two of them before it's done. Chu Tianyin took his leave expressionlessly, but he was laughing at himself inwardly. What was wrong with him just now? How could he forget what kind of person Long Fei Yi was? Although he was working with Long Fei Yi, that didn't mean that Long Fei Yi would be merciful to him. He was simply asking to be humiliated. By the time Long Fei Yi finished his business, it was already midnight. He took a bath and was about to go to Myriad Merchant Hall when he remembered that the Shadow Guard had already reported that Han Yunxi was rushing to Western Jade Palace and wouldn't be in the black market tonight. If he rushed over now, it would probably be dawn by the time he caught up. Recalling Han Yunxi's clumsy advances last night and her languid and tired appearance as she lay on the bed this morning, Long Fei Yi couldn't help but smile, and the corners of his mouth curved beautifully. Long Fei Yi couldn't sleep. He strolled into the courtyard and coincidentally bumped into Bailey Mingxiang practicing martial arts in the courtyard. Your Highness. Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly retreated and bowed in greeting. Long Fei Yi made a sound of acknowledgement, then walked past her and left. Bailey Mingxiang didn't dare to look at his face just now, but now she hurriedly looked up, wishing she could imprint his back into her heart. After Long Fei Yi's back disappeared, she turned back and gripped the sword in her hand, practicing even harder. Just as everyone was preparing to capture Bai Yanqing dragged his heavily injured body and hid as he rushed to the valley. His poison skills were exquisite, and his martial arts were superb. There was no need for him to hide like this. However, Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi, whom he had spent so much effort to separate, were still working together. One's poison skills were on par with his, and the other's martial arts were better than his. The two of them working together were his natural enemies. He wasn't stupid enough to confront them directly. He decided to give up his original plan and take Gu Beiwei to Northern Li. However, when he entered the room, he found it was a mess. Gu Beiwei was gone. Chapter 922. Gu Beiwei had disappeared. Bai Yanqing's gaze turned cold. He turned around and went out the door, looking for him like a madman. Gu Beiwei was his biggest trump card. He was the only trump card he could use against Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi. If he couldn't instigate Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi, he could only rely on Gu Beiwei. Gu Beiwei had actually disappeared. Where was he? Soaring Dragon Valley was such a secluded place. It was almost cut off from the outside world. How did Gu Beiwei escape? Not only was Gu Beiwei heavily injured, he was also poisoned. How did he escape from the poison guards lying in ambush around him? Furthermore, why did he escape? Could it be that he had discovered something? Guards! Guards! Bai Yanqing stood in the courtyard and shouted. Unfortunately, there was no response. He was even more incredulous. He went out of the courtyard and searched everywhere. Very quickly, he found a pile of corpses in the bamboo forest behind the courtyard. They were all his poison guards. They were all killed in one stroke. Bai Yanqing was stunned. Gu Beiwei definitely didn't have the ability to kill so many poison guards. Therefore, someone must have snuck in and rescued him. Who could it be? How could they avoid the poison guard's poison? How did they find this place? Anger burned in his heart. Anger rushed to his chest. Bai Yanqing suddenly drew his sword and swung it, breaking a few bamboos. He had been tricked in a black tower and escaped in a sorry state. He also found out that Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi didn't turn against each other. These two matters were enough to make him angry. He didn't expect that Gu Beiwei would also go missing. He had plotted for so many years. He had endured for so many years. Where did he go wrong? How did the result turn out like this? The Great War between Eastern and Western Qin should have started. He should have just sat back and watched everything. How could he be reduced to such a sorry state? After venting for a while, Bai Yanqing finally calmed down. He stabbed his sword into the ground and raised his head. His eyes were closed, and a trace of pain flashed across his wrinkled eyebrows. His failure was due to Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi. Why? Why were they able to join hands? Moreover, they weren't working together in an ordinary way. From their intimate actions, anyone could tell that they still had feelings for each other. What right did they have to forget the responsibility on each other's shoulders? On what basis could they forget the enmity between their countries? Why? Why couldn't the woman he loved do it? Why did she still not believe him when he told her the truth, that there was only a misunderstanding between the East and Western Qin, and that someone had sowed discord between them? Why? Why could her daughter use the identity of Western Qin's princess to hook up with the East Qin crown prince? Why couldn't she accept him as a descendant of the Feng clan? Recalling the past, Bai Yanqing, who had originally calmed down, seemed to have gone mad. He swung his sword wildly and madly shouted that name. Mu Xin, Mu Xin, you betrayed me. It was you who betrayed me. Mu Xin, I will never forgive you. Even if you die, I still won't forgive you. Mu Xin, open your eyes and look at your daughter. Mu Xin, tell me why. Why? Mu Xin, I actually lost your daughter. When the entire bamboo forest was cut down, Bai Yanqing threw away his sword and his entire body fell backwards, heavily falling to the ground. Although his eyes were open, those sharp eyes seemed to have lost focus and were incomparably empty. Bai Yanqing was hidden in the soaring Dragon Valley, but Jun Yixie, who didn't know the truth, was still searching everywhere for his whereabouts. And at this time, Bai Yuqiao and the Black Tower Poison Guard brother Qi had already sent Ning Cheng and Su Xiaoyu to northern Li's Heavenly River City. Bai Yuqiao asked brother Qi to bring Su Xiaoyu to the military camp to find her senior brother first. She herself had something to say to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng was wearing a hollowed-out mask that covered half of the right side of his face, covering his blind eye. This mask was made of silver and was very exquisite. It was half an open wing, a phoenix feather. Bai Yuqiao kidnapped Ning Cheng all the way here and didn't restrict his freedom. However, Ning Cheng simply couldn't leave, because after Bai Yuqiao cured the poison in his eye, he gave him another strange poison. If he didn't take the antidote for a day, Ning Cheng would feel as if his entire body was being burned until he died. Of course, being restricted by the poison wasn't the real reason why Ning Cheng couldn't leave. Another reason why he kept following Bai Yuqiao was that Bai Yuqiao wanted to take him to see Jun Yixie. Bai Yuqiao said that Jun Yixie didn't know what Bai Yanqing had done in the past year. Bai Yuqiao was afraid that Jun Yixie wouldn't believe her words, so she asked Ning Cheng to testify. She promised that as long as Ning Cheng testified, she would immediately give Ning Cheng the antidote. At this time, the two of them were sitting in a private room in a tea house in Heavenly River City, leaning against the railing. Ning Cheng liked wine and wasn't used to drinking tea, so he hadn't touched it yet. Bai Yuqiao, on the other hand, was carefully tasting the tea, enjoying herself. When she saw Ning Cheng looking out of the window, she secretly looked at Ning Cheng's phoenix feather mask. That mask was personally drawn by Ning Cheng and made her send someone to make it. Hey, the phoenix feather birthmark on Han Yunxi's back looks like this, right? Have you seen it before? Bai Yuqiao had been curious for a long time. Ning Cheng didn't turn around, but his eyes darkened. When you plan to take me to see Jun Yixie? He had to admit that the relationship between Bai Yanqing and Jun Yixie was beyond his expectations. If there was a gap between the master and disciple, it might be a great opportunity for the D clan. Ning Cheng, you really like Han Yunxi. She even blinded you. What do you like about her? Bai Yuqiao asked curiously. Ning Cheng's hand on the table slowly clenched into a fist. Bai Yuqiao used to be afraid of him, but now she wasn't. After all, Ning Cheng was still restricted by her poison. She was sure that Ning Cheng wouldn't go back to ask Han Yunxi to help him detoxify the poison, but it was too late to go back. Moreover, she was also sure that Ning Cheng would be interested in cooperating with her senior brother. Bai Yuqiao glanced at the clenched fist and continued to smile. Don't tell me you're thinking about the position of Western Qin's Imperial Prince's son-in-law. Hee, when Han Yunshi ascends the throne one day, you'll be the D clan's clan leader. Great General Ning would be a good match for her. Ning Cheng. Before Bai Yuqiao could finish speaking, Ning Cheng suddenly grabbed her collar. Bai Yuqiao's entire body fell onto the table, sweeping the tea set off the table. I'm warning you for the last time. Don't ever mention the 3 words Han Yunshi in front of me again. Otherwise, I'll let you know what it means to be truly blind. Ning Cheng warned coldly. Ning Cheng, if you don't let go of me now, I definitely won't give you the antidote today. Bai Yuqiao said angrily. Ning Cheng snorted coldly. This clan leader believes that Jun Xie will be very willing to help me detoxify the poison. After he finished speaking, he shook off Bai Yuqiao and got up to leave. Bai Yuqiao quickly stopped him. Ning Cheng, you don't understand the relationship between my senior brother and my master, do you? Ning Cheng asked in return. Of course. If you're willing to believe me, I could tell you everything. Bai Yuqiao quickly said. Ning Cheng laughed loudly. Why should I believe you? Fulfill your promise from before. I'll definitely tell you the truth. Bai Yuqiao smiled. She had always been thinking about the sum of money that Ning Cheng had promised her. She still hadn't gotten the rest of the money. If she got it, senior brother would definitely be pleasantly surprised. Ning Cheng sneered. Nonsense. Bai Yuqiao was angry. Ning Cheng, I'm not even going to argue with you when you lied to me. Are you going to renege on your debt? Bai Yanqing was lured here by Han Yunshi, not you. You should thank the heavens that I didn't ask you to repay the debt. Ning Cheng really didn't want to waste his breath on this kind of little girl. Since they were already in Tina City, rather than wasting his breath on Bai Yuqiao, he might as well go find Jun Xie. Helpless, Bai Yuqiao stopped him again. Fine, I don't want that sum of money. You can listen to my senior brother and my master story first. It won't be too late to leave after that. Why are you telling me so much? Ning Cheng was really curious. Because I want my senior brother to get rid of my master and not be deceived again. Don't be fooled by my master like a fool, and still respect him like a father. Bai Yuqiao said seriously. Ning Cheng, as long as you can convince my senior brother to cooperate with you, you'll have a chance of winning whether it's against the Northern Li imperial family or against the Long Fei Yi. You should give up on Han Yunshi. Bai Yuqiao's eyes narrowed as she said seriously, You're working so hard to be loyal to her. Why don't you conquer the country yourself and make her submit? A woman like Han Yunshi would only like a man like Long Fei Yi. How could she like a slave like you? Ning Cheng slowly pulled away from Bai Yuqiao and gave Bai Yuqiao a meaningful look. I don't mind telling you that the reason my senior brother has always been under the control of the Northern Dynasty's emperors and didn't resist is because he has always been waiting for my master. Bai Yuqiao had been hiding all along the way, but when she arrived in Northern Li, she asked around about the situation in Northern Li. She had a thorough understanding of Jun Xie's situation and the current situation in Northern Li. She also guessed that Long Fei Yi and Ning Cheng had a lot of thoughts of sowing discord among the Northern Dynasty's emperors. She sneered. Haha, my senior brother can't command his troops. Long Fei Yi will definitely underestimate my senior brother's power in Northern Li. Hearing this, Ning Cheng's eyes lit up. Bai Yuqiao's analysis was very correct. Long Fei Yi definitely wouldn't have thought of the wonderful relationship between Jun Xie and Bai Yanqing. It seemed that Jun Xie really couldn't command his troops and wasn't really under the control of the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Ning Cheng had been blinded in one eye. His left eye seemed to be even darker and more hidden. Regarding this matter, only he knew what his attitude towards Bai Yuqiao's persuasion was. Bai Yuqiao looked into Ning Cheng's eyes. She couldn't help but admit that even though this man was blind in one eye, he was still dignified, noble, and incomparably handsome. Family head Ning, please consider it carefully. Bai Yuqiao was very patient and also very confident. Ning Cheng sat down and lightly said, Speak. This family head is all ears. Bai Yuqiao spoke from a young age. For as long as she could remember, her senior brother had been at the 100 Poisons sect. He treated his master like a father, respectful and obedient. The more Ning Cheng listened, the deeper his eyes became, as if he was calculating something. By the time Bai Yuqiao finished speaking, the sky had already darkened. Ning Cheng's complexion also began to turn ugly. The poison had flared up. Bai Yuqiao straightforwardly handed over the antidote. After Ning Cheng swallowed it, his complexion improved a little. "Let's go. I'll take you to see my senior brother." Bai Yuqiao's excitement overflowed. He hadn't seen his senior brother for a long time and had missed him so much that he was about to go crazy. Ning Cheng stretched out a hand. "Return Han Yunxi's golden needle to me, and I'll go with you." The golden needle that Ning Cheng spoke of was the one that had pierced into his eye. Han Yunxi's golden needle was very special, so Bai Yuqiao had hidden it away. Bai Yuqiao was suspicious. However, Ning Cheng coldly said, "This family head must keep it well and constantly remind you of the revenge of that needle." Chapter 923. Revenge of a Needle? Bai Yuqiao looked at the phoenix feather mask on Ning Cheng's face again, half believing and half doubting. However, she still straightforwardly handed over the golden needle to Ning Cheng. In any case, she could not figure out how the needle was made and what mysteries it contained. Bai Yuqiao quickly brought Ning Cheng to the military camp on the outskirts of Tiana City. Because Brother Qi had already informed them, when they arrived at the entrance of the military camp, they saw Jun Yixie personally standing at the entrance to welcome them. Bai Yuqiao saw the familiar figure from afar, and her heartbeat sped up. She unconsciously stopped and took a few more glances. In front of her senior brother, she might not dare to look at him like this. On the contrary, she only dared to show her admiration from afar. Ning Cheng was not in the mood to pay attention to Bai Yuqiao's strange behavior. He looked at Jun Yixie and walked forward step by step. A meaningful sneer flashed past his eyes. He was now considered a prisoner. Since Jun Yixie personally came to the entrance to welcome him, it meant that Jun Yixie also had the intention to join forces with him. As long as Jun Yixie had the intention, everything would be easy to handle. When he got closer, he saw Jun Yixie in a fiery red riding outfit. He was handsome and valiant. These days in the military camp, he who had lived like a prince had lost a lot of weight and tan a lot. His facial features were even more profound, as if they were carved by God. The blood-red eyebrow nail at the corner of his eyebrows, hidden under his fine bangs, looked like a trace of blood, but also like a cluster of flames, full of a mysterious aura. The wind suddenly rose, lifting his cloak and also his body. He was insufferably arrogant. Even if he personally came out of the camp to welcome Ning Cheng, Jun Yixie's attitude was still high and mighty when he walked in front of him. If it were anyone else, they would have been intimidated by Jun Yixie's powerful aura. However, Ning Cheng was different. Unlike Jun Yixie's noble attire, Ning Cheng's simple black attire made him look a lot more down and out. However, when he raised his head, his cold and arrogant gaze was enough to look down on everything about Jun Yixie. The wind on the grassland blew harder and harder. The two tall and proud men stood face to face. Their eyes met, and the silent contest had already begun. Jun Yixie waited for Ning Cheng to speak first. Ning Cheng also waited for Jun Yixie to speak first. The two of them were silent, but their gazes were not quiet at all. They were scrutinizing each other, but neither of them moved. Fortunately, Bai Yuqiao quickly came over. Seeing this, she hurriedly mediated, "Senior brother, this is the D clan's patriarch and also the great general of the Ning army, Ning Cheng." However, Jun Yixie did not say anything. Bai Yuqiao hurriedly said, "Great General Ning, this is my senior brother, Jun Yixie." Ning Cheng also did not say anything. Bai Yuqiao was anxious and did not know what to do. Suddenly, Jun Yixie fiercely kicked at Ning Cheng. Almost at the same time, Ning Cheng also kicked out and blocked Jun Yixie's foot. The two of them were in a deadlock. Jun Yixie's eyes turned cold, and he immediately used his strength. Ning Cheng's martial arts were not as good as Jun Yixie's. He did not directly resist, but cleverly avoided. However, Jun Yixie did not let go. His body suddenly rose into the air, and his feet kicked one in front and one back. Ning Cheng repeatedly retreated, but was accidentally kicked to the ground by Jun Yixie. Even so, his gaze was still cold as he coldly scrutinized Jun Yixie. Ning Cheng's gaze made Jun Yixie very uncomfortable. He had already kicked Ning Cheng to the ground, but he did not stop. He strode forward and ruthlessly kicked at the mask on Ning Cheng's face. Ning Cheng used his right hand to grab Jun Yixie's foot and held on tightly. Jun Yixie could not break free, so he simply did not struggle. His other foot tapped on the ground and used the force to jump up, still kicking at Ning Cheng's face. Ning Cheng could clearly use his left hand to grab Jun Yixie's foot. As long as he grabbed it, Jun Yixie's feet would be restricted and he would lose for sure. Jun Yixie's arrogance was exposed, while Ning Cheng's arrogance was restrained. Ning Cheng could not win in martial arts, but he could win in strategy. However, even though the opportunity was right in front of him, Ning Cheng still did not win. His left hand was always by his side. His palm was pressed on the ground, and he did not even raise it. He concealed it so well that even Jun Yixie mistakenly thought that he did not have time to make a move and did not deliberately not make a move. Jun Yixie's kick landed on Ning Cheng's phoenix feather mask. It did not break but fell off. Ning Cheng's blind eye was exposed. His eyeball was fine, and the shape of his eye was still good. However, it was empty and lifeless without focus. The eyes were the most difficult to fake. No matter how powerful an expert was, they could only fake both eyes and pretend to be blind. One eye was normal, and the other was blind. No one could fake it. Jun Yixie carefully looked at Ning Cheng's blind eye. Only then did he believe that he was really blind. Hee, Han Yunqi is really ruthless. Jun Yixie sneered as he reached out to Ning Cheng, wanted to pull him up. Ning Cheng did not even look at Jun Yixie's hand. He picked up the phoenix feather mask, wiped it clean with his sleeve, and put it back on. Only then did he stand up and pat the dust off his body. He and Jun Yixie were about the same height, but his back looked more arrogant and imposing than Jun Yixie's. Jun Yixie calmly withdrew his hand and sneered. Phoenix feather? Han Yunqi's birthmark looks like this? The Nether clan has a map. They rely on phoenix feather to find people. As Ning Cheng spoke, he looked at Jun Yixie. What, Bai Yanqing also knows about phoenix feather's existence? Didn't he tell you? You don't know that phoenix feather's birthmark looks like this? Bai Yuqiao became suspicious. She thought that she must be overthinking. How could Ning Cheng have seen Han Yunqi's birthmark? Jun Yixie, who was originally arrogant, suddenly became gloomy. He turned to look at Bai Yuqiao. After Brother Qi brought Su Xiaoyu here, he told him everything that his master had been doing these days. However, he was not willing to believe it, unless his master told him personally. Unless his master admitted that he had been using him all this time, he would not believe it. Ning Cheng's question was undoubtedly because he knew about their relationship. It must have been Bai Yuqiao who told him. Bai Yuqiao had already guessed that her senior brother would have this kind of attitude, so she needed Ning Cheng's help. She lowered her head, not daring to meet Jun Yixie's scrutinizing gaze. She hoped that Ning Cheng would quickly help her out. Ning Cheng sneered. You were tricked by Bai Yanqing. You can only blame your own stupidity. Why? Are you blaming a little girl? You have no right to interfere in my sex affairs. Jun Yixie was still cold as he stared at Bai Yuqiao. Ning Cheng leisurely patted the grass in his hand and sneered. Bai Yuqiao, since your senior brother intends to continue being the Feng clan's lackey, why do you have to worry so much about him? Ning Cheng finished speaking and turned to leave. If Jun Yixie remained stubborn with Bai Yanqing, there would be no possibility of cooperation between him and Jun Yixie. Bai Yuqiao was anxious. Senior brother, Master has hidden so many things from you. Why are you still so stubborn? When I was in the Winter Crow clan, how could Master tell me everything? Jun Yixie retorted cold. He has a sense of propriety. Could it be that he has to tell us everything? Bai Yuqiao smiled bitterly. Senior brother, Master has long planned this. Do you still remember the bloodstains you brought back from Fishing Boat Island? That was Bailey Mingxiang's blood, the blood of the Mermaid clan. Master has been studying those bloodstains behind your back. It was from those bloodstains that Master guessed Long Fei Ye's identity. Jun Yixie's eyes darkened when he heard this. Senior brother, do you know why Master knows Han Yunxi's identity? Because Han Yunxi is a direct descendant of the poison sect, and so is Master. I saw Master use the poison storage space with my own eyes. It can't be faked. Also, Helian Zuixiang of Tianning's Han Estate was actually a spy that Master planted in the Han Estate many years ago. 20 years ago, Master already knew Han Yunxi's identity and the whereabouts of the Western Qin princess. Why did Master tell you? Bai Yuqiao asked next. Jun Yixie's heart gave a start. 20 years ago, Master had been entrusted by his father to bring him to Northern Li. He had promised his father to raise him well, so he could fulfill the Black Clan's unfulfilled wish and unite Cloud Realm continent. If Master knew about Han Yunxi's identity 20 years ago, why didn't he tell his father? Why didn't he tell him? Master, how could he do this? Bai Yuqiao was afraid that Jun Yixie wouldn't believe him, so he quickly shot a look at Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng gave a cold snort. Han Yunxi only found out about Bai Yanqing's identity because of the poison storage space. Bai Yanqing used the poison storage space back at Lost Void Lake. Jun Yixie looked at him as if he wanted to say something, but held back in the end. Senior brother, when Master and I pretended to be loyal to Western Qin, Master told Han Yunxi and Ning Cheng that you were the head of the Wind Clan and he was only your servant. Senior brother, think carefully. Master hid everything from you and even pushed you to the position of head of the Wind Clan. What were his intentions? Senior brother, if not for Han Yunxi and Ning Cheng exposing Master's identity, you would be the target of public criticism right now. Whether it's Han Yunxi or Long Fei Yi, they won't let you off. You have to take all the blame for the Wind Clan. You're a sucker. Senior brother, if you don't believe me, Ning Cheng can testify. Ning Cheng was also there at that time. Bai Yuqiao persuaded repeatedly. Jun Yixie's heart finally started to hurt. It hurt a lot. Master, whom he had always regarded as his father, hid it from him so bitterly. If it was something that happened in the past 1 or 2 years, he would still be willing to believe it. But how could he forgive something that happened 20 years ago? Master had clearly lied to him from the moment he took him in as a disciple. Master pushed him to the position of head of the Wind Clan. So where did he intend to put the Black Clan? Bai Yuqiao and Ning Cheng didn't know that he was a descendant of the Black Clan, but he should be clear about it himself. Jun Yixie was silent. At this time, Ning Cheng's face was full of suspicion. Bai Yuqiao's words just now reminded him of something. Ning Cheng, say something. Bai Yuqiao stomped his feet anxiously. Ning Cheng then slowly looked at Jun Yixie and said, Jun Yixie, Bai Yanqing hasn't contacted you yet, right? He also didn't tell you that Gu Beiwei is in his hands, right? Jun Yixie didn't say anything. Ning Cheng asked again, Jun Yixie, if Bai Yanqing really wants your warhorses so much, why hasn't he shown up yet when you were grounded in Tianhe City by the Northern Dynasty's emperors? What is he hiding from? Jun Yixie was immersed in his own despair and didn't answer. Bai Yuqiao hurriedly replied, Master and Senior Brother agreed that Senior Brother would only be in charge of bringing the warhorses back. After killing the Crown Prince and Second Prince, Master would help him deal with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. But Master went back on his word. Jun Yixie looked at Bai Yuqiao coldly again, but didn't reprimand him. Chapter 924. Hearing Bai Yuqiao's explanation, Ning Cheng gave a cold laugh. Jun Yixie, you've really been played by Bai Yanqing. The Northern Dynasty's emperors are not fools. You killed the Crown Prince and Second Prince and controlled 100,000 warhorses. How can Bai Yanqing convince the Northern Dynasty's emperors to believe you? This is simply a joke, and you believe it? Jun Yixie's eyes flashed with displeasure as he retorted. Even if Master can't convince the Northern Dynasty's emperors, the Northern Dynasty's emperors may not be able to restrict me. As long as I give the order, at least half of the Northernly cavalry will listen to me. What about the army's pay? Ning Cheng asked back. These two words made Jun Yixie speechless, and Bai Yuqiao suddenly understood. Thinking of the words she said to Ning Chung in the tea house, she felt ashamed. The situation in Northern Lee, her senior brother's current situation, Ning Chung saw it more clearly than her. Her senior brother could indeed rebel at any time, but her senior brother didn't have any pay. He could most hold on for a month. After a month, it would be winter and there would be no more food. The horses would starve and the soldiers would flee. This was her senior brother's fatal flaw. June Xie. Bai Yanqing should be very clear on how much food you have. So, for every day he doesn't come, you have to be in a deadlock with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Bai Yanqing doesn't want to take you to conquer the world. He just wants to use you to hold back Northern Lee. He wants to let my Ning family army have no worries and use all our strength to fight to the death with East Qin. Ning Chung seriously said. Bai Yuqiao nodded repeatedly. Ning Cheng's analysis was right. If Han Yunqi hadn't exposed Master's identity at that time, everything would have happened as Ning Cheng said. Eastern and Western Qin were embroiled in a chaotic war, and Northern Li was embroiled in civil strife. Even if Eastern and Western Qin suffered heavy losses, Jun Xie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors would not be able to take advantage of the situation because they would also suffer heavy losses. Jun Xie finally came to a realization. He muttered to himself, "Master, he's helping you." Ning Cheng nodded helplessly. In a sense, Bai Yanqing was indeed helping the D clan. Unfortunately, he had discovered it too late. Unfortunately, he had been frightened by Jun Xie's 100,000 warhorses. If it wasn't for Bai Yuqiao's words reminding him, when he discovered the contradiction in Bai Yanqing's actions, he wouldn't have thought of this point. Why would Master help you? Jun Xie couldn't accept this fact. However, Ning Chung knew in his heart that although Bai Yanqing seemed to be helping the D clan, he actually wanted the D clan to have no worries and go all out to fight East Qin. Bai Yanqing played a large game of chess. He schemed against Long Fei Yi, Han Yunqi, and even him and Jun Xie. There was only one goal, which was to have Eastern and Western Qin fight to the death with no chance of reconciliation. Han Yunqi's words once again echoed in Ning Cheng's ears. Han Yunqi questioned him. Didn't you say you would give everyone a chance to redeem themselves? You even used the red barbarian cannons. What is the meaning of this? That's right. Back then, Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi both suspected Bai Yanqing's intentions. They both suspected that the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin was a misunderstanding, but he just didn't believe it. He just didn't want to believe it. Now that he knew that Bai Yanqing was hiding things from Jun Xie, and Bai Yuqiao brought it up, he couldn't help but be suspicious. But he couldn't figure it out. If the Wen clan was the one who instigated the civil war between Eastern and Western Qin, then what were they after? Were they after Cloud Realm Continent? Judging from Bai Yanqing's actions, he didn't care about Cloud Realm Continent at all. He just wanted to throw the continent into chaos. Ning Chung was immersed in his own thoughts while Jun Xie laughed loudly. Ning Chung, don't tell me my master is truly loyal to Western Qin. I'm telling you, that's impossible. It was obvious that Jun Xie hadn't realized Bai Yanqing's true motives. A complicated look flickered past Ning Cheng's eyes before he asked, Jun Xie, you've been his disciple for over 20 years. What do you think he wants to do? What did Master want to do? Master had always told him that the Wind Clan would help the Black Clan seize Northern Li's armored cavalry and take over Cloud Realm Continent. Just like how the Black Clan had instigated the civil war between Eastern and Western Qin, the Wind Clan was the Black Clan's best ally. But now he couldn't believe his own lies. Ning Chung turned back and approached Jun Xie step by step. Tell me, what does he want to do? No matter what he wants to do, he'll never pledge loyalty to Western Qin. Never. Jun Xie was forced into a corner. Bai Yuqiao watched from the sidelines. He wanted to interrupt a few times, but held back in the end. Senior brother had never been forced into such a corner in his entire life. Master was probably the only thing that could truly hurt him. Bai Yuqiao steeled her heart and kept quiet. She only hoped that Ning Chung could be even more ruthless and force senior brother to wake up and scold him to his senses. But Bai Yuqiao was wrong. Ning Cheng's every word was meant to test Jun Xie. He couldn't see through by Yanqing, so he hoped to find some clues from Jun Yixie's reactions. Jun Yixie, you've been fooled by him like a fool. You've been fooled for over 20 years. Why are you so sure he won't? Ning Cheng gave a cold laugh. Jun Yixie, are you pretending to be a fool, or are you really a fool? Jun Yixie suddenly grabbed Ning Cheng's collar. Ning Cheng, let me tell you, the Wen clan has already betrayed the Western Qin royal family. Not now, but during the Great Qin Empire's civil war, the Wen clan had already betrayed the Western Qin royal family. When these words were said, Ning Cheng was immediately stunned. The civil war between Western Qin and Eastern Qin was caused by the flooding of the Sha River. The Wen clan had sent a letter saying that the East Qin crown prince wanted to protect the iron mine and destroy the dam, diverting the flood downstream. When the East Qin royal family sent the Black clan to destroy the dam, the Western Qin royal family sent the Wen clan's army to stop them. It was because of the Wen clan's defeat that when the civil war began, the Western Qin royal family did not have the advantage and were destroyed in just a single year. That night at the border of the battlefield, Long Fei Yi had denied this story. Long Fei Yi denied protecting the iron mine. Long Fei Yi had said that the East Qin royal family had only sent the Black clan to steal the iron mine, and the Black clan's army had been ambushed by the Wen clan, causing the two armies to fight. If the Wen clan had betrayed the Western Qin royal family in the past, could it be that the Wen clan had given false information, slandering the East Qin royal family? Could it be that the Wen clan had deliberately ambushed the Black clan's army and caused the civil war? How could the Wen clan betray the Western Qin royal family in the past? Ning Cheng said in a shocked voice. Jun Yixie gave a cold laugh. Ning Cheng, the Wen and Black clans have always been allies. The Great Qin Empire civil war in the past was caused by the Sha River flood, caused by the conflict between the Wen and Black clans. Think about it carefully. Hee. Did Ning Cheng still think about it? Jun Yixie's words confirmed his guess. East and Western Qin had really been instigated. Everything had been instigated by the Wen and Black clans. For so many years, so many people had been obsessed with the national enmity, not the national enmity between East and Western Qin. It was the Wen clan and Black clan. The ones who should bear the hatred were them. Ning Cheng fell back several steps. How could he accept this fact? For so many years, the D clan's obsession and his obsession had all become a joke. Truly laughable. Ning Cheng shook his head again and again. Jun Yixie pressed forward step by step. Even if my master betrayed the Black clan, he would not be loyal to Western Qin. Ning Cheng, you don't need to worry about my sect's internal affairs. I only ask you one thing. Are you interested in cooperating with my Black clan? Black clan? Jun Yixie was actually a descendant of the Black clan. Ning Cheng was shocked. Bai Yuqiao was dumbfounded. However, after the shock, they quickly understood. Jun Yixie was a descendant of the Black clan. No wonder Bai Yanqing took him in as a disciple and trained him for so many years. The Black clan understood the language of beasts and were good at taming beasts. Those horse trainers in the Winter Crow War Horse team are from your Black clan? Ning Cheng asked seriously. Yes. Jun Yixie admitted generously. He said that he had hired the Winter Crow race's horse trainers to take care of the war horses. In fact, it was just a cover to deceive people. Those horse trainers were from the Black clan. It was because of his beast-taming skills that he was worshipped by the Winter Crow royal family and easily bought back 90,000 war horses. Ning Cheng was deeply moved. He never thought that the truth would be like this. Long Fei, you must be very puzzled as to how Jun Yixie curried favor with the Winter Crow royal family and brought back war horses. Ning Cheng, that bitch Han Yunqi has already thrown herself into Long Fei Ye's arms. Why are you so obsessed with reviving Western Qin? Hee, you must have been blind to let her be your master. Jun Yixie said mockingly. Ning Cheng lowered his head and remained silent. Jun Yixie knocked on his phoenix feather mask and said in a mocking tone, What? You're still wearing this thing on your face? Are you trying to show your loyalty or humiliate yourself? Ning Cheng slapped Jun Yixie's hand away and still didn't say anything. A trace of suspicion flashed across Jun Yixie's eyes, and he suddenly took off his phoenix feather mask. Just as he was about to throw it away, Ning Cheng finally stopped him. He snatched the phoenix feather mask and said coldly, "Jun Yixie, I can cooperate with you. The country will belong to you, and Han Yunxi will belong to me. I won't allow you to hurt her. How's that?" Bai Yuqiao looked over when she heard this. Although she had guessed it, she still found it hard to believe when she heard Ning Cheng admit it himself. No wonder Ning Cheng still refused to let go of the D clan when Han Yunxi forgot about the national enmity and hooked up with Long Fei Yi. It turned out that his heart wasn't with Western Qin, but with the Western Qin princess. Jun Yixie burst into laughter. "I don't want the country, but I want the beauty. Hee hee. Han Yunxi's taste is indeed not bad. What a pity. Back then, he had almost gotten Han Yunxi in a moment of impulse." Jun Yixie was still laughing when Ning Cheng suddenly threw a punch at Jun Yixie's mouth. Jun Yixie didn't expect this, and his entire face was knocked askew. He fell to the ground and spat out 2 teeth. "Ning Cheng!" Bai Yuqiao rushed over angrily, but Ning Cheng kicked him away. He was furious. Before Jun Yixie could get up, he grabbed Jun Yixie and threw another punch at him. However, Jun Yixie blocked the punch and sneered. "I really haven't had a taste of her. But Long Fei Yi is probably sick of her. I'm not interested in Long Fei Yi's broken shoes. If you want, I'll keep you. You have so much strength. Save it for Long Fei Yi. Come at me. Hee. Who do you think you are?" What Jun Yixie said did make some sense. However, Ning Cheng didn't know where he got the strength from. He broke free from Jun Yixie's grip and punched Jun Yixie in the face again, sending him flying. The needle in his left hand pierced deeply into his flesh as he clenched his fist. However, Ning Cheng didn't feel any pain. His heart felt worse than his palm. Looking at Jun Yixie's face, he suddenly realized that he was just like Jun Yixie. They were both good-for-nothings. Chapter 925. When Jun Yixie got up, Ning Cheng wanted to chase after him, but several guards hurried over to stop him. Ning Cheng stared at Jun Yixie, the anger in his eyes burning fiercely, as if it would never cease. Jun Yixie's teeth were broken, and his face was bruised and swollen. He got up on his own. Bai Yuqiao ignored the pain on his body and rushed over to help him up, but was pushed away. Bai Yuqiao fell to the ground, but Jun Yixie didn't even look at her. Perhaps he didn't even notice that the person who came to help him was Bai Yuqiao, and only thought that it was a guard. Bai Yuqiao was in so much pain from Ning Cheng's kick, and with this fall, he was in so much pain that he couldn't get up. Jun Yixie wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his lips curled into a cold and arrogant smile. If Ning Cheng had come up with another reason to agree to cooperate with him, he would have been suspicious. However, he definitely wouldn't doubt Ning Cheng's reason. Although the D clan was a merchant family, they were famous among the 7 noble families for their integrity. Even if the D clan was disappointed with Western Qin, they wouldn't cooperate with the Black clan and betray Western Qin. However, Ning Cheng's love had turned into hatred, so it was better not to talk about it. Jun Yixie licked the blood from the corner of his mouth, and once again sized up the phoenix feather mask on Ning Cheng's face. The more he looked at it, the more meaningful it seemed. He chuckled and said, "You used the phoenix feather mask to block that blind eye. How interesting. How do you want to cooperate?" Ning Cheng asked coldly. Jun Yixie didn't answer immediately, and instead invited Ning Cheng into the barracks. In the tent, Jun Yixie casually sat down on the main seat and told Ning Cheng directly, "Pay." Ning Cheng's eyes flashed with contempt as he asked, "How much do you need?" "The Northern Dynasty's emperors cut off all of my rations. The 30,000 horses here need rations. In the following month, the 2nd and 3rd batches of horses will arrive, and they will all need money to feed them. Winter provisions are the most expensive." Jun Yixie asked for money very straightforwardly, without blushing at all. "That's all." Ning Cheng played dumb. "I still have 10,000 cavalrymen under my command." Jun Yixie added, "That's it." Ning Chung asked again. Jun Yixie was about to nod when Ning Chung said coldly, Jun Yixie, you should know that our cooperation is not a business deal. Just tell me how much you want. This patriarch is not in the mood to haggle with you. Jun Yixie rubbed his aching shoulder and laughed. Good, that's straightforward enough. I want 1 billion. If it were anyone else, they would have been frightened by this number. But Ning Cheng's expression didn't change, and he didn't even frown. Coldly, he said, just 90,000 horses and 10,000 cavalrymen for the winter. All of the military supplies will be at most 20 million. Ning Chung wasn't just a merchant, but also a general who led troops into battle. He was very clear about the situation in the army. So, Patriarch Ning only plans to cooperate with me for 1 winter? Jun Yixie raised an eyebrow and asked, I'm only calculating for 1 season. Ning Chung lightly said, I want to raise more than 90,000 horses and 10,000 cavalrymen. Jun Yixie stood up and walked over to the map hanging on the wall. He pointed to several locations. The troops in these places are usually raised by me. Jun Yixie wanted money, but he also wanted to show off his military strength to Ning Chung. Ning Chung glanced at the map and memorized all the markings on it. From these markings, he could see the situation of the military strength in various regions of Northern Li. It seems that Bai Yuqiao didn't lie to him. Jun Yixie really did have the strength to fight against the Northern Dynasty's emperors. If he had enough provisions, then once he sent out his troops, Northern Li would definitely fall into chaos. Although the Northern Dynasty's emperors wouldn't be defeated, they wouldn't be able to gain any benefits from Jun Yixie. Even with these, I still don't need 1 billion. Ning Chung calmly said, 1 billion, including the cost of the cooperation between the Black and D clans. In the future, whether it's dealing with the Long Fei Yi or conquering Western Zhou's Tianing, I won't ask you for a single cent. Jun Yixie seriously said. Ning Chung smiled. I can give you 1 billion, but what can your Black clan give me? What do you want? Jun Yixie asked back. Ning Chung coldly said 3 words, Han Yunshi. Jun Yixie's eyes flashed with a cold smile. He stood up and walked over. He patted Ning Cheng's shoulder and probed. Brother, why do you have to do this? You and I will rule Cloud Realm together in the future. What kind of woman can't we have? If you can't do it, then there's nothing to talk about. Ning Chung was very decisive. Jun Yixie immediately raised his hand and let go of Ning Cheng's shoulder. Master Ning, if you want to snatch a woman, go snatch it yourself. I'm not interested. Ning Cheng's eyes flashed with a sinister glint. Coldly, he said, Give me 30,000 military horses and 10,000 cavalrymen. Although Ning Chung repeatedly emphasized Han Yunshi, these words still aroused Jun Yixie's vigilance. Jun Yixie meaningfully sized him up, but didn't say anything. You can help my D-clan army fight against the Long Fei Yi. I can provide for all your horses and soldiers. I can also add another 100 million taels for you to recruit soldiers. This winter, you only need to throw Northern Li into chaos. When spring comes next year, you can lead your troops south and take control of the south. Jun Yixie still didn't say anything. He walked back to his seat and slowly sat down. If he gave Ning Cheng 30,000 military horses, Ning Cheng's military strength would increase greatly. In addition to the D clan's red barbarian cannons, the D clan would really be able to contend against the Long Fei Yi. Perhaps they would even have a chance of winning. He had 60,000 cavalrymen left behind. In addition to the various forces in Northern Li, it was enough to contend against the Northern Dynasty's emperor's military strength. When Ning Cheng and the Long Fei Yi were both heavily injured, he would be able to take care of the Northern Dynasty's emperors and reap the benefits from the south. However, if Ning Cheng regretted it, wouldn't he have cheated him of 30,000 war horses for nothing? In this kind of chaotic time, although 1 billion taels was a lot, he definitely couldn't buy so many war horses. Even if he made another trip to Winter Crow, he wouldn't be able to bring back so many war horses. What if Ning Cheng bid him back after obtaining the 30,000 war horses? Ning Cheng wasn't in a hurry. He let Jun Yixie think about it. He turned around with his hands behind his back and looked at the map on the wall. Jun Ixia looked at Ning Cheng's back and slowly narrowed his eyes. Because of his master's matter, he had been a bit impulsive. Now that he had calmed down, he thought about how he had easily told Ning Cheng the secret of the Eastern and Western Qin Civil War. It seemed a bit inappropriate. If Ning Cheng continued to be loyal to Western Qin and no longer made an enemy of East Qin, then wouldn't everything he did today be smashing his own foot with a rock? The more Jun Ixia thought, the more complicated his eyes became. Ning Cheng looked like he was paying attention to the map, but his eyes were always looking at Jun Ixia. He hesitated a bit before saying, Jun Ixia, I've said it before. The world is yours and Han Yunxi is mine. When I defeat Long Fei Yi, I'll return the 30,000 war horses to you. It's not impossible. Women are like clothes. You may think about it today, but perhaps after this year, you won't like it anymore. Jun Ixia's words were very subtle, but Ning Cheng was very direct. My body is poisoned and I rely on Bai Yuqiao's antidote to survive. You cannot believe me, but at least believe in your junior sister's poison. Jun Ixia finally realized this point. With Ning Cheng's weakness in his hands, he wasn't afraid of Ning Cheng biting back at him. It looks like I'll have to trouble clan head Ning to stay with my army. Jun Ixia smiled. In other words, he was going to put Ning Cheng under house arrest. Han Yunxi was a detoxification expert. How could he set his mind at ease if she let Ning Cheng go? If he put Ning Cheng under house arrest by his side, he could indirectly steal Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's money through Ning Cheng. He could even control the D-Clan for his own use. After dispelling his suspicions, Jun Ixia was too fond of such a profitable business deal. Then I'll have to trouble you to take care of me, Ning Cheng said mildly. You're too polite. Jun Ixia smiled with satisfaction. Just like that, Ning Cheng stayed at Jun Ixia's horse farm. Jun Ixia didn't seem to restrict Ning Cheng, but he secretly sent many people to keep an eye on Ning Cheng and keep an eye on Ning Cheng's every move. He didn't tell Ning Cheng to arrange the soldiers' pay and provisions right away, but Ning Cheng wasn't in a rush to do so either. He didn't go anywhere, but sat by the gates of the barracks in a daze all day. As for Bai Yanqing's matter, Jun Ixia didn't bring it up again. By nightfall, Jun Ixia had Ning Cheng write a letter to the D-Clan to report his safety. Ning Cheng naturally knew that Jun Ixia would read his letter, so he only wrote a few words. Staying at Northern Li's horse farm for now. Everything is well. Who should he write this letter to? Ning Cheng's first thought was Han Yunxi. He had been missing for so many days, so the entire D-Clan must be looking for him. What about Han Yunxi? As he thought about this, his eye under the phoenix feather began to ache. What was Han Yunxi doing now? Was she still with Long Fei Yi? Was she still tracking Bai Yanqing? Ning Cheng hesitated for a moment, then wrote Old Cheng on the envelope. Jun Ixia had already seen what Ning Cheng wrote in the letter. He took the letter without even looking at it, then asked with interest, Old Cheng? Who's that? A servant who has been with me for more than 10 years, Ning Cheng said mildly. Jun Ixia casually handed the letter to an attendant beside him to send it out. I heard that Myriad Merchant Hall hasn't been peaceful recently. There's been trouble at the gambling houses and auction houses, Jun Ixia probed. A complicated look flitted past Ning Cheng's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. He said disdainfully, There's nothing my Myriad Merchant Hall can't handle in the three-way black market. Outsiders might not know, but Ning Cheng was well aware. Ever since Cloud Realm Trade Consortium lost its medicinal ingredients business in the South Central Regions market, it had suffered heavy losses over the past 2 years. It was all thanks to the gambling houses and auction houses that they could keep afloat. If both places were in trouble, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. After all, the D-Clan and his subordinates, as well as the consortium's unprofitable businesses, were all dependent on Myriad Merchant Hall. What had happened to the gambling houses and auction houses? Would the Council of Elders be able to hold on without him? Was that girl Ning Jing still in the black market? Ning Cheng hid all his worries in his heart. Jun Ixia really didn't know the inner workings of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium, nor did he have much interest in the black market. In any case, He was certain that the D clan had plenty of silver. Rest and recuperate for a few days. We'll talk about the soldiers' pay another day. Jun Xie said seriously. 1 billion was a huge sum. Was Ning Cheng planning to pay it all at once? Or how? How was Ning Cheng going to pay for 30,000 battle horses? Should he tell the world about his cooperation with Ning Cheng? Or do it in secret? Everything still needed to be discussed in detail. As soon as Jun Xie left Ning Cheng's place, Bai Yuqiao came looking for him. Senior brother, master's matter, enough. Jun Xie cut him off coldly. Senior brother, don't tell me you're still. Jun Xie abruptly turned around, his gaze fierce. It's none of your business to talk about the matters between me and master. So speaking, he stalked off. Bai Yuqiao felt her heart ache. At least she tried her best, she thought. At least senior brother knew the truth. After over 20 years of master and disciple love, how could they hate each other so easily? Of course, once they did, there would be no turning back. Jun Xie wasn't stupid, but he needed time to hide and lick his wounds. Meanwhile, the commotion had died down and the conspiracy was settled. Ning Cheng sat alone in the barracks, licking the wounds of the D clan and himself. The faith of 3 generations, the persistence of 100 years, and his perseverance had suddenly turned into a joke overnight. Chapter 926. The enmity between Eastern and Western Qin was nothing but a misunderstanding, a joke. If Han Yunqi knew about this, she would be very happy, right? How happy would she be? Would she be as happy as a little girl, screaming and jumping up and down? Ning Cheng had never seen her like that. In fact, he had never seen her smile before. Thinking of this, he seemed to see that woman's confident and bright smile. How would Long Fei Yi react? Even if Ning Cheng was unwilling to accept or believe it, he had to admit that Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi had won the bet this time. What else could he refuse to accept from Han Yunqi? She was the master, and he was the servant. She was the monarch, and he was the subject. She did not forget her important task, and did not have an affair with the enemy. What right did he have to refuse to accept her? She chose Long Fei Yi, so what reason did he have to interfere? Ning Cheng sat on the ground with his head bowed and his hands resting on his knees. In the darkness, the candlelight illuminated the strong contours of his face, causing his lips to curve up into a bitter smile. It was as if this was his fate, but there was nothing he could do. He did not believe that Eastern and Western Qin was just a misunderstanding. How could it be so coincidental that he was the first to know this secret? Ning Cheng was immersed in his thoughts when Bai Yuqiao walked in. Have I talked to my senior brother? Bai Yuqiao asked. Ning Cheng looked up at her and sneered in his heart. Bai Yuqiao would be a very useful chess piece. The truth was revealed, but it did not mean that the hatred of so many years would end. The civil war of the Great Qin Empire had caused countless deaths and countless sacrifices. This debt was real. Who would pay for this debt? Naturally, it would be the Black Clan and the Wind Clan. He could not do anything to Bai Yanqing, but he did not believe that he could not take down Jun Xie. Ning Cheng's letter to Uncle Cheng was on the way, and Uncle Cheng's situation was not good at all. Han Yunqi and her group had already completed the transaction of South Ju Garden and West Jade Garden. After paying the banknotes and receiving the title deeds, they returned to the three-way black market. Uncle Cheng sat in Myriad Merchant Hall for a while, then found an excuse to slip away. He had previously made an agreement with Jia Dai that once the transaction was completed, he would go to the three-way black market's Jianfu Bank to get the money. But he had already waited at Fortune Bank for an hour, but he still didn't see Jia Dai's people coming over. Jia Dai had raised the price at the last minute without discussing it with him, and now he had not come to meet him. The more Uncle Cheng thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. After sitting for a while longer, he made a prompt decision to rush to Myriad Merchant Hall's Thriving Heavens Bank. Half of the banknotes that Han Yunqi and First Elder paid to Jia Dai were issued by Thriving Heavens Bank and could be exchanged for silver taels at any of Myriad Merchant Hall's banks. If he blocked the account number of those banknotes before Jia Dai cashed in the cash, those banknotes would become invalid and Jia Dai would not be able to get the silver tails. However, when Uncle Chung arrived at Thriving Heavens Bank, he was informed that those banknotes had already been exchanged at other banks. Damn it! Uncle Chung pounded his fist on the counter, scaring the manager so much that he did not know what to do. Simply abominable. Uncle Chung was unable to restrain his anger, but very soon, he could not be bothered to be angry. Instead, it was replaced by panic. Without that sum of money, how was he going to help Deacon Jean repay his debt? The deadline that he had promised Deacon Jean was tonight. Uncle Chung gradually fell silent, his expression complicated. Seeing this, the manager cautiously leaned over and whispered, "Uncle Chung, these banknotes were issued by the Council of Elders, right? What kind of deal did First Elder make recently that required such a large sum of silver? How would the subordinates know that the Princess of Western Sheen had already meddled in Myriad Merchant Hall's affairs? And how would the Council of Elders' expenses be known by the subordinates? In the bank, only the manager knew that Myriad Merchant Hall had paid out 700 million in banknotes this afternoon. Uncle Chung was immersed in his own thoughts and did not hear the manager's question at all. Right now, he only had two paths. One was to silence them before Deacon Jean found Han Yunxi and the Council of Elders. The other was to flee. After Uncle Chung left Thriving Heavens Bank, he did not return to Myriad Merchant Hall. Instead, he called for several experts to accompany him and headed towards the three-way black market's most chaotic brothel. Although it was already late at night, Han Yunxi was still very, very busy. After returning from West Jade Garden, she discussed with the elders about reopening the casinos. South Ju Garden and West Jade Garden had many courtyards that could be used directly and did not need to be renovated. It would be fine as long as they moved everything from the casinos. Let's start tonight. Remember, this must be kept a secret. The casinos must be reopened within 10 days at the latest, Han Yunxi said seriously. Ever since she left Ning Jing's place, she had been on high alert, unwilling to relax for even a moment. "Princess, please name the casinos," First Elder said respectfully. They had discussed and decided to name South Ju Garden, which was closest to three-way black market, as an ordinary casino. They would open it first, while West Jade Garden would use a membership system. They would spread the news first and wait for a while. Han Yunxi thought for a moment, then said, "Let's use the original name. In a few days, find some people to spread the news that the casinos are opened by the garden owner." First Elder clapped his hands in approval. Such misleading rumors would only make the casino's origins more and more mysterious. This would definitely do them more good than harm. Han Yunxi and the other elders finalized a few more details before the meeting ended. Han Yunxi was pushed by a maidservant and chatted with the elders all the way out of the meeting hall. "Your Highness, these 2 days have been hard on you. Your Highness, quickly go and rest. Leave the rest to us. Don't worry." Han Yunxi was about to ask about the situation at the auction hall when a servant ran over excitedly. "Your Highness, First Elder, the auction hall is open." "Really?" First Elder was overjoyed. All three main halls are open for business, and they're all big deals. The East Hall opened 2 orders in a row. The customer for the second order directly paid for it without borrowing money from Kingan Bank, the servant said excitedly. First Elder was so happy that he didn't know what to say. His tired, bloodshot eyes were wet with tears. He had been under the most pressure over the past few days. Cloud Realm Trade Consortium, the Army, and the various D-Clan factions scattered across Cloud Realm Continent had all sent letters to ask about Myriad Merchant Hall's situation. Today, he tossed out 700 million to buy 2 gardens. Although he looked calm, his heart was still trembling. He was afraid that the D-Clan's centuries-old foundation would crumble in his hands. Fortunately, the crisis at the auction hall had been resolved. Now, Myriad Merchant Hall didn't have to worry about risks anymore. They could afford to gamble. The elders exchanged looks, their joy evident in their words. In the end, they all looked towards Han Yunxi, unsure of how to express their gratitude. Han Yunxi silently exhaled in relief. She was happy too. Smiling, she said, "Everyone, rest early. Get a good night's sleep." She knew how much pressure these 5 elders had to bear. Presumably, They would be able to sleep peacefully tonight. Everyone laughed at Han Yunqi's words. That's right. Have you found those troublemakers from the gambling houses? Han Yunqi asked. We're still investigating. We'll report as soon as there's any news. The head elder replied hastily. Han Yunqi nodded and dismissed everyone. She was going to have a servant girl push her over to Ning Jing's room for a look, but she suddenly remembered someone else and didn't go over. She'd only been gone for 2 days. Why did it feel so long after spending a night outside? Why did it feel like she hadn't seen the Long Fei Yi for 3 years? Was that guy already waiting for him in her room? Han Yunqi's ears still burned when she thought back to everything that had happened that night. She'd vowed many times to torment the Long Fei Yi, but when she did, she felt like she didn't have enough power to control him. In the end, he still managed to eat her alive. Han Yunqi quickly returned to her room. As usual, she dismissed all the servant girls inside and outside the room. She sat in the wheelchair and looked around the room. The room was empty, and she didn't see that familiar figure. Where is he? She hadn't seen him for the past few times, but he had appeared out of nowhere. Where was he hiding? Han Yunqi's lips curved into a smile as she steeled her heart to find Long Fei. However, just as she was about to look for him, a servant girl came over. Your Highness, the head elder wants to see you. He said he has something to disturb you about. It was really disturbing to find her room so late at night. Han Yunqi deliberately didn't answer. She waited for the Long Fei Yi to come out and ask her to reject him. However, after waiting for a while, the room was still quiet. Long Fei Yi didn't come? If he was here, with his domineering personality, he would have come out to glare at her and ask her to reject the head elder. Han Yunqi's excited mood seemed to have been splashed with cold water. She suddenly fell down. She said to the servant girl indifferently, ask the head elder to wait in the side hall. I'll go over now. Before she left, she turned back to look at the room again. Finally, she left in disappointment. Once she reached the side hall, the head elder strode forward before Han Yunqi could say anything. He knelt down and respectfully presented a token with both hands. The token was made of gold-threaded cedarwood. It was in the shape of a key and tied with a gold-threaded satin. The word D was engraved on the token. Han Yunqi had been looking forward to this token for a long time. She didn't pretend to be shocked, nor did she hypocritically refuse. Instead, she kept silent. Your Highness, Master Ning is not here. Please preside over the situation for the D clan. The head elder said seriously. Preside over the situation for the D clan? Han Yunqi looked pensive. Just as she was about to probe further, the head elder immediately changed his words. Myriad Merchant Hall will obey the princess's orders. Han Yunqi picked up the token and smiled faintly. Head elder, aren't you afraid that Long Fei Yi and I will still be together and waste all the D clan's money? The head elder smiled embarrassedly. If the princess really wants to, who can stop you? Han Yunqi suddenly thought of Ning Cheng. He was young and wasn't as open-minded as the head elder, who was old. That's right. If she wanted to, who could stop her from betraying the heavy responsibility of Western Qin? Why did she have to work so hard to resolve these crises for Myriad Merchant Hall? Why did she have to fight so hard for a just and above-board position? Han Yunqi returned the elder token to the head elder. If the elder council trusts me, just promise me one thing. Ning Cheng isn't here, so Myriad Merchant Hall's affairs will still be handled by you and the other elders. I'm just offering a few suggestions. The head elder was very surprised. To put it bluntly, this token was free silver and free authority. With this token in hand, who in the D clan would dare look down on her? Who would dare question her? She didn't want it? What is it, Your Highness? Please instruct me. The head elder said seriously. Elder, please use the name of Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Council to inform Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's Elder Council, the generals and deputy generals of the Ning clan army, that Western Qin will join forces with East Qin to capture by Yanqing and rescue Gu Beiwa. Before Han Yunqi could finish, the head elder's expression changed. He exclaimed, the princess wants to work with East Qin? Chapter 927. Han Yunshi wanted to cooperate with Long Fei Yi and inform the upper echelons of the D clan's Chamber of Commerce and the military. An open and above-board cooperation. The first elder was flabbergasted. He had never expected that Han Yunshi would make such a request after rejecting the elder's command. Ning Jing had questioned this before, and Han Yunshi had explained it to her. Eastern and Western Qin had stopped fighting because Ning Cheng and Long Fei Yi had reached an agreement to deal with by Yanqing first. Long Fei Yi had agreed to stop fighting because he wanted to use Han Yunshi's poison skills to restrain Bai Yanqing. The first elder still had lingering fears from the previous quarrel. He had thought that the matter would be over now that the princess had returned. He had sent people to track down Ning Cheng's whereabouts. However, not only had Han Yunshi brought up the old matter again, but she had also publicly announced that she wanted to cooperate with Long Fei Yi. She wanted the upper echelons of the D clan to know about this. She had even requested to bring up this matter in the name of Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Assembly. Undoubtedly, she wanted Myriad Merchant Hall to acknowledge her cooperation with Long Fei Yi. A private cooperation was already unacceptable, let alone a public cooperation. The first elder looked at Han Yunshi with a frown and did not say anything for a long time. Long Fei Yi has a way to lure Bai Yanqing out, and I have a way to restrain Bai Yanqing's poison skills. We can only capture Bai Yanqing if we cooperate, Han Yunshi reminded him. First elder, Bai Yanqing and his master control 90,000 warhorses and 10,000 cavalrymen in northern Li. If Eastern and Western Qin do not cooperate, will the Feng clan really benefit for nothing? Han Yunshi asked. Seeing that the first elder was still silent, Han Yunshi continued. First elder, Western Qin and East Qin still have their own version of the reason for the civil war in the Great Qin Empire. Western Qin's imperial family gave the Feng clan full authority to deal with the flood of Sand River, while East Qin's imperial family gave the Black clan to deal with. Have you never doubted the truth of that year? Don't you want to clarify the grudges of that year? Even if each side has its own version, there must be a truth. Han Yunshi was helpless and could only lie. Long Fei Yi has denied the actions of the East Qin Empire in the past, and even slandered my Western Qin's imperial family for ordering the Feng clan to attack the Black clan's army. Why don't we use this cooperation opportunity to capture Bai Yanqing, and let Bai Yanqing and Long Fei Yi confront each other? We have been enemies with East Qin for all these years. We can't let them frame us for no reason. Han Yunshi did not directly question the truth of the Great Qin Empire Civil War. She used a clever way of speaking, but made the first elder doubt the truth of the past. Seeing that the first elder was a bit shaken, Han Yunshi continued with a strong medicine. She revealed a self-deprecating smile. First elder, why is the difference between a princess and a crown prince so big? Long Fei Yi wants to cooperate with Western Qin. It only takes a single sentence. I, the Western Qin princess. Seeing the first elder's nervous appearance, Han Yunshi fiercely said, I, the Western Qin princess, am at best a puppet. Forget it, I should go back and properly recover. The matter of recovering the country, wait for your master Ning to come back and make a decision. I won't blindly meddle. After Han Yunshi finished speaking, the first elder broke out in a cold sweat. Han Yunshi was clearly questioning the D clan's loyalty and mocking the D clan's hypocrisy. First elder, it's this late and you should go back. Properly take your elder token. Han Yunshi said this as she turned the wheel to leave. She even said to herself, it's a good thing I know my place and didn't take any elder token. Her voice was not loud, but it was just enough for the first elder to hear. How could the first elder withstand Han Yunshi's self-deprecation? She was mocking the Council of Elders and the D clan with her self-deprecation. She was warning the first elder that if he didn't agree, she wouldn't care and would become a puppet. When a maid sent Han Yunshi to the door, the first elder couldn't help saying, Princess, if you think it's appropriate, this subordinate will do as you say. The first elder thought that if the princess didn't forget the heavy responsibility on her shoulders, Western Qin would cooperate with East Qin. So what? It was necessary to distinguish the truth of the civil war in the past and let the people of the world come to a conclusion. Not to mention that this cooperation was not Western Qin begging the Long Fei Yi, but rather the Long Fei Yi begging their princess for help and needed the princess' poison skills. The first elder comforted himself. Although his heart didn't feel good, he still compromised in the end. All right, I'll send news tomorrow. I asked the companies and the military to wait for our good news. Han Yunqi honestly said. She had her back to the first elder, and her lips couldn't help curling into a happy smile. She had finally done it. She didn't need to be sneaky anymore, and she could use the name of Western Qin's princess to openly cooperate with the East Qin crown prince, Long Fei Yi. No matter what, she didn't need to hide anymore, and she didn't need to hesitate anymore. She was filled with hope that the conflict between Eastern and Western Qin was just a misunderstanding. If it really was just national enmity and there was no misunderstanding, she was prepared to fight. They had agreed that whether they fought or not, they would live on, because after taking off the heavy responsibility on her shoulders, they still had to be themselves and love each other. She still had to give birth to a dozen babies for Long Fei Yi. She was filled with hope and prepared. Would Long Fei Yi be the same? After the first elder left, Han Yunqi dismissed the maid. She couldn't wait to share this good news with Long Fei Yi. Before the 10-day agreement was up, she had already done it. However, after she entered the room, she remembered that Long Fei Yi hadn't come tonight. Su Donglin had always known her whereabouts. Could it be that Su Donglin didn't tell him that she was already back? Han Yunqi sat in the room for a long time. She almost called Su Donglin, who was guarding outside, to ask him, but she gave up in the end. It was impossible for Su Donglin not to report her whereabouts to Long Fei Yi. There was only one possibility, and that was that he was busy. Looking at the empty room, Han Yunqi was so tired that she didn't want to do anything. She just laid on the table and stared at the teacup in a daze. Although she had accepted the fact that Long Fei Yi hadn't come, she was still secretly waiting in her heart. There was still a bit of hope, and she firmly believed that he would come. However, no matter how long she waited, the room was still silent. Finally, she pressed both hands on the table, stood up carefully, and tried to walk forward. Sure enough, when she took the first step, Long Fei Yi's unhappy voice came from behind her. He said, Han Yunqi, try taking another step forward. She knew it. She knew that he would be here. Sure enough, she had found out. What are you going to do if I take another step forward? Han Yunqi said jokingly. Just as she was about to turn around, Long Fei Yi beat her to it. He strode forward and suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, hugging her. Han Yunqi also stopped moving. A soundless smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It was as sweet as honey and bright enough to illuminate the dark, cold night. She said, Long Fei Yi, hug me a little tighter, okay? I missed you. Long Fei Yi moved closer and pulled her into his embrace. They stuck close to each other and felt each other's existence. Is that enough? Long Fei Yi asked. A little tighter, Han Yunqi said gently. However, the two of them really couldn't get any closer. If they got any closer, he would have to knead her into his flesh and blood. He didn't say anything else. He just hugged her and buried his head in her shoulder. Silently, he kissed her jade neck and ears. He was unruffled and greedy. Occasionally, he would deeply inhale the unique fragrance on her body. It was a scent that belonged exclusively to him. 1 day apart felt like 3 years. What about 2 days apart? He couldn't imagine what he would do if he was separated from this woman for a few more days. He had arrived a long time ago and was staring at her to see if she remembered to change her dressing. Sure enough, he caught her again. As Long Fei Yi's kisses became heavier and heavier, and as his arms got closer and closer, Han Yunqi couldn't help but raise her head and close her eyes to feel his gentleness and passion. Even if he was unruffled, he still remembered her injury. He didn't let her stand for too long. Instead, he carried her to the bed and helped her change her dressing. Long Fei Yi, Han Yunqi wanted to say something, but hesitated. She just smiled at him. You've taken down Myriad Merchant Hall? Long Fei Yi asked in return. He knew about Great Elder's arrival and had been watching. Aren't you happy? Han Yunqi asked in return. Only then did Long Fei Yi rub her nose, I'll take you with me tomorrow. We'll go to 100 Poison's sect. I've already made the arrangements. His happiness was well expressed on his face, and he directly put it into action. 100 Poison's sect? Han Yunqi was rather surprised. Surround and attack 100 Poison's sect. Send the poison guards and mercenaries from the City of Daughters over tomorrow. If Bai Yanqing doesn't come out, we'll raise 100 Poison's sect to the ground. Long Fei Yi said. All right. Han Yunqi really hadn't thought about 100 Poison's sect before. That was Bai Yanqing's old nest. They had already provoked Bai Yanqing to the doorstep of his old nest. If Bai Yanqing still acted like a coward, then not only would he be removed from the world, he would also be laughed at by the people in the poison world. He would also be looked down upon by his subordinates. With Bai Yanqing's personality, he definitely wouldn't be able to tolerate this kind of humiliation. Moreover, he was wary of her joining forces with Long Fei Yi. Therefore, Bai Yanqing only had one path to take, and that was to bring Gu Beiwei to 100 Poison's sect to restrain them. Long Fei Yi's move was simply amazing. It was enough to force Bai Yanqing into a corner. Han Yunqi cupped Long Fei Yi's face in her hands and said seriously, You're still the smart one. Long Fei Yi didn't like being close to others since he was young. Even his mother had never cupped his face like this. However, he didn't feel the slightest bit repulsed by Han Yunqi. He allowed her to hold his face. He didn't even mind when she playfully pinched his nose. He focused on applying medicine and bandaging her wound. After treating her wound, Long Fei Yi took out a gold card. 700 million is here. Keep it well. I don't want your money. Han Yunqi said seriously. This was the money to scam Myriad Merchant Hall. However, in a sense, it wasn't a scam. It was just a fee paid by Myriad Merchant Hall to Kingan Bank. If she hadn't come forward, no matter how profitable it was, no matter how much shopkeeper Luo appreciated her proposal, Kingan Bank would never have cooperated with Myriad Merchant Hall. When Myriad Merchant Hall was in trouble, it was already good enough that Kingan Bank didn't kick them when they were down. Therefore, Myriad Merchant Hall owed Long Fei Yi a favor. 700 million to repay Long Fei Yi a favor was truly not a lot. Han Yunqi analyzed the situation for Long Fei Yi, but Long Fei Yi wasn't interested. He asked, If you don't want money, do you want people? Why do these words sound so familiar? She seemed to have said them the other night. Long Fei Yi leaned lazily against the high pillow and raised his brows to size up Han Yunqi. Chapter 928. Long Fei Yi's gaze wasn't meaningful at all. It was malicious. Han Yunqi avoided his gaze and coughed lightly, trying to find a topic to talk about. All right, remember to remind me to get Tang Li out tomorrow. Now that she had a real say in Myriad Merchant Hall, as long as Tang Li was willing to cooperate with her, it would be easy for her to get the Elders Guild to release him. Other matters could be delayed, but Ning Jing's matter couldn't be delayed. If Ning Jing knew about Tang Li's feelings for her, how would she react? Han Yunqi couldn't help but imagine their future. Long Fei Yi appeared to be disinterested in this topic. He answered lazily, Long Fei Yi had no intention of continuing the conversation, so Han Yunqi could only continue to find a topic to talk about. The child was a knot in Long Fei Yi's heart. She wouldn't be so foolish as to continue mentioning Tang Li and Ning Jing. She thought for a moment, then said seriously, All right, I still have to inform Great Elder about Uncle Cheng's matter tomorrow. If Uncle Cheng doesn't get the money in these 2 days, he'll definitely show his true colors. Han Yunqi didn't rush to settle the score with Uncle Cheng because she was waiting for Uncle Cheng to lose his cool and find trouble with Jia Dai. No matter what, Uncle Cheng was still a senior figure in the D clan. Instead of wasting her efforts to find evidence to bring him down, she might as well let him take the bait and expose himself. Long Fei Yi was still disinterested and nodded dispiritedly. Han Yunqi changed the topic again. Long Fei Yi, there's still no news from Gu. Could he? Before she could finish, Long Fei Yi interrupted her forcefully. Han Yunqi, I don't like you mentioning other people's names on the bed, especially Gu. Han Yunqi really wanted to tell him not to talk to her on the bed next time. Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance to say it. Long Fei Yi quickly used his actions to tell her that she could only call him by his name on the bed. Long Fei Yi, you bastard! Long Fei Yi, no, not here! Long Fei Yi, that's enough! That's enough! Long Fei Yi, you don't! These screams were ecstatic. However, Long Fei Yi was only tickling Han Yunqi. Although Han Yunqi's legs had recovered quite a bit, it was still inconvenient. Moreover, she couldn't resist the strength of Long Fei Yi's hands. Not long after, she lay under Long Fei Yi and raised her hands in surrender. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Judging from her tone, she didn't sound like she was admitting her mistake and surrendering. It was obvious that she had no choice. Long Fei Yi was expressionless as he looked down at her. Beg me. Han Yunqi had a lot of backbone. She turned her head away with a snort. Long Fei Yi narrowed his eyes and licked the corner of his lips as he stared at Han Yunqi. Han Yunqi could feel the dangerous aura, but she refused to comply. She could feel his hot breath getting closer and closer. She knew that he was leaning close to her, so she simply closed her eyes. Seeing this, the desire to conquer in Long Fei Yi's eyes intensified. Suddenly, he pressed down on Han Yunqi's arm with one hand and used the other hand to attack her armpit. Han Yunqi was so frightened that she had goosebumps all over her body. She was most afraid of Long Fei Yi scratching her armpit. Long Fei Yi's hand only wandered around and didn't really scratch her. Han Yunqi was already glaring at him. Let go, you're bullying me. It would have been better if she didn't say anything. The more dissatisfied she was, the more excited he became and suddenly scratched her. Han Yunqi screamed. Her voice was really too miserable to hear. Su Donglin, who was guarding outside the courtyard, couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, the maids had retreated, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if absence makes the heart grow fonder, there was no need to be like this. Did His Highness have to torture the princess to this extent? Are you begging or not? Long Fei Yi asked again. Han Yunqi was scratched until tears came out her eyes. Her watery eyes were filled with stubbornness, making her look even more lovely and moving. I'm not begging. Even if I die, I won't beg. Very good. Long Fei Yi had never been so competitive with a woman before. Han Yunqi was the first and only one. He had once attacked her, but this time, he didn't just tickle her once. Once he started, he didn't stop. Let go. Long Fei Yi, let go. That's enough. Let go of me, I'm going to get angry. Long Fei Yi, you're too hateful. Let go, you're bullying me. Woo. Long Fei Yi, I'm going to cry. Han Yunqi seemed to have gone crazy. She laughed, cried, shouted, and screamed. She wasn't even willing to say the word beg. She struggled hard with both hands and twisted her body to avoid him. She didn't know if Long Fei Yi was soft-hearted or if he was careless, but she actually managed to break free of her hands. He only stopped when she hurriedly pulled on his hands. The two of them looked at each other. Han Yunqi was panting while Long Fei Yi was calm and patient. Even if she managed to break free, it would be easy for him to restrain her again. He didn't make a move immediately and waited for her to speak. Han Yunqi glared at him and gritted her teeth. She seemed to be hesitating. Seeing this, Long Fei Yi became even more patient and waited. As expected, Han Yunqi opened her mouth. Long Fei Yi, yeah. He couldn't help but laugh. Unexpectedly, she changed the topic and said, "Why don't you beg me?" Just like the previous time, she suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck and pressed him against her chest. She caressed his face, neck, and back gently and gradually helped him undress. At first, he didn't move and just buried his head in her body. But gradually, he didn't want to be outdone. He didn't even need to look at her and easily removed her clothes. The word beg had already been thrown to the back of his mind. He closed his eyes and kissed her gently. He easily fell into her beauty. However, he soon touched that scar and sobered up immediately. He looked up and saw that there was a deep bite mark on Han Yunqi's chest. What's going on? His face immediately darkened. Before Han Yunqi could answer, he pressed her down and said angrily, Han Yunqi, what exactly happened? He had bitten her here and left a bite mark, but it wasn't deep at all. It definitely wouldn't leave a scar. How did this scar come about? Seeing Long Fei Yi's violent and overflowing anger, Han Yunshi then realized that this guy might have misunderstood. How did this scar come about? Who else could it be other than him? Who else could it be? Han Yunshi couldn't help but laugh. I asked Mu Ling for some medicine so that you'll be punished for the crime of bullying a disabled person like me. Long Feiye's ashen face finally calmed down a little. He was about to lose to this woman. She had stirred up his 7 emotions and 6 desires, and even controlled his happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy. So much so that a misunderstanding could destroy his usually hard heart. He gently caressed the scar and looked at it seriously. He said gently, Han Yunshi, I admit to this crime. Han Yunshi smiled. All right, seeing that you have a good attitude when admitting to your crime, I'll lighten the punishment. I'll punish you. Han Yunshi's voice also unconsciously softened. Long Feiye, I'll punish you to love me forever. Do you accept? I accept. The scar on Long Feiye's hand was so similar to Han Yunshi's, as if they were a match made in heaven. He was lost in his thoughts when Han Yunshi hugged him and pulled him down. She whispered in his ear, submitting herself to him. Long Feiye, I beg you, love me. The night was silent. The moon was hazy, the land of tenderness, the drunken hibiscus. Nothing was known. The next morning, when Long Feiye woke up, Han Yunshi was still asleep. He didn't leave cautiously like before, but woke Han Yunshi up. I'll wait for you at the entrance of the black market in the afternoon, Long Feiye said seriously. Although he couldn't wait to take her away from the 3-way black market, Long Feiye still gave Han Yunshi enough time to deal with Myriad Merchant Hall's troublesome matters. Han Yunshi immediately woke up. After Long Feiye left, she ordered the servant girls to tidy up and immediately rushed to the prison. She could finally rescue Tang Li, the sect head Tang. Tang Li hadn't seen Han Yunshi for 2 days. The moment he saw her, he almost knelt down. Sister-in-law, why are you only here now? How's Ning Jing these few days? Is she better? Is she still taking medicine? Does she still feel uncomfortable? Does she vomit? Is it swollen? Can she sleep at night? How about during the day? Does she feel sleepy during the day? Under Han Yunshi's incredulous gaze, he asked a bunch of questions. In the end, he even asked, Is my daughter obedient? Tang Li had completely refreshed Han Yunshi's understanding of him. You know a lot, Han Yunshi said very seriously. How is she? Tang Li was burning with anxiety. How do you know she's pregnant with a daughter? Han Yunshi asked again. Tang Li didn't answer, nor did he ask Han Yunshi. He simply begged her. Sister-in-law, can you think of a way for me to see her? Just once. I'll sneak out and come back. It'll only take a while. No one will find out. Han Yunshi shook her head. Sorry, I can't do that. Tang Li was furious. I want to see my brother. He didn't have the ability to escape, but his brother definitely had the ability to get him out. Even if it exposed the relationship between the Tang sect and the East Qin imperial family, he wouldn't hesitate. In any case, he didn't expect to get any benefits from Ning Jing, nor did he want to make things difficult for Ning Jing to trick the D clan. He only had one thought now, and that was to take Ning Jing home and take care of the baby. He was going to be a father. Looking at the nearly crazy Tang Li, Han Yunshi couldn't help but wonder how Long Feiye would react if she got pregnant one day. Sister-in-law, Tang Li begged. He was just short of kidnapping Han Yunshi to threaten those archers. Your brother won't help you either. If you want to get out, you just have to agree to one of my conditions. Han Yunshi smiled. Tang Li immediately shut his mouth and waited for Han Yunshi to continue. Han Yunshi lowered her voice and whispered into his ear. Only then did Tang Li know what Han Yunshi had been doing at Myriad Merchant Hall these days. So they'll listen to you? Tang Li asked seriously. They'll listen to me for such a big matter, let alone a small matter like yours, Han Yunshi said with a smile. This isn't a small matter. Tang Li looked aggrieved. Han Yunshi had lost to him. Okay. This is also a big matter. I'll go find the Great Elder now. Go. Tang Li's attitude was no different from chasing someone away. Han Yunshi realized for the first time that this was the joy of being a father. Seeing Tang Li so happy made her feel great. After Han Yunshi left the prison cell, she went to find a Great Elder, but Chapter 929. Before Han Yunxi reached the Council of Elders, a maidservant in green came looking for her. Princess, princess, something bad has happened. The maidservant in green was extremely pale. This maidservant in green had been bribed by Han Yunxi to serve Ning Jing in her courtyard. Han Yunxi's heart grew flustered. If anything happened to Ning Jing and her daughter, how was she going to explain it to Tang Li? What happened? Han Yunxi asked. Miss Jing and Miss Mu Ling have disappeared. Qian, who was serving them the room, has been killed. The maidservant in green was so frightened that her lips and teeth were still trembling. I was just about to bring in the food when I saw Qian lying on the ground. There was no one on the bed. I immediately went to look for Miss Ling but Miss Ling was also not in the side room. Han Yunxi thought that the worst-case scenario was that something had happened to Ning Jing's body, but she never expected things to be this bad. Ning Jing needed to be bedridden. Could she still hold on after being kidnapped? The maidservant had been killed, and Ning Jing and Mu Ling had disappeared. This was clearly a kidnapping. Han Yunxi's hands were cold, but she still calmed down and instructed, "Go and inform the Council of Elders immediately. Also, don't divulge anything about Ning Jing. Otherwise, be careful of your life." Han Yunxi had the maidservant quickly push her to Ning Jing's courtyard to inspect the scene. To be able to kill people and kidnap people in Myriad Merchant Hall without a sound, it was definitely not simple. It was either an expert or a mole. When Han Yunxi rushed over, First Elder and the others had just arrived. When they saw the corpse in the room, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Fifth Elder was about to examine the corpse when Han Yunxi stopped him. "Don't touch it. Someone, go and find a coroner." First Elder understood Han Yunxi's meaning. Han Yunxi knew a little about forensic science, but it was safer to leave unprofessional things to a coroner. While they were waiting for the coroner, Han Yunxi took the initiative to ask the maidservant about the situation in the courtyard since yesterday. Under the reminder of Han Yunxi's eyes again and again, the flustered maidservant finally didn't spill the beans about Ning Jing's pregnancy. According to the clues provided by the maidservant, Ning Jing and Mu Linger were still there last night. It was very likely that they were kidnapped between night and dawn. Mu Linger was responsible for preparing medicine for Ning Jing and lived in the side room. Ning Jing was recuperating in a master bedroom. The maid who was killed was the maid who kept watch at night. Soon, the coroner arrived. After a thorough examination, he confirmed that the maidservant had been killed in the middle of the night. She was killed with a single stab, and there were no signs of struggle before she died. "It must be a mole," Han Yunxi said seriously. There were many guards on night patrol in Myriad Merchant Hall, and Ning Jing's courtyard was also surrounded by guards who specialized in night patrol. If it wasn't a mole who was familiar with this place, how could they silently sneak in to kill and take away Ning Jing and Mu Linger without anyone noticing? There can't be a mole in Myriad Merchant Hall. Second Elder said angrily. Even if there's a mole, what's the point of kidnapping Miss Jing? Although Third Elder wasn't as agitated as Second Elder, he agreed with this point of view. "Your Highness, Miss Jing hasn't been in charge for a long time. Now that she's sick, if there's a mole, they should know that kidnapping her won't be a threat to the D clan." "Could it be someone from the Tang sect?" First Elder asked suspiciously. Han Yunxi countered, "If it was someone from the Tang sect, why did they only kidnap Ning Jing? Why didn't they rescue Tang Li?" Second Elder said righteously, "They probably didn't find Tang Li." Han Yunxi couldn't help but roll her eyes. She actually hoped that it was the Tang sect who kidnapped them. Then everything would be easier. But how could it be the Tang sect who kidnapped them? Those elders of the Tang sect still didn't know that Tang Li was imprisoned in Myriad Merchant Hall. They only thought that Tang Li had brought Ning Jing to East Origin Hall to play. Moreover, even if they wanted to take action, they wouldn't be so bold as to hide it from Long Fei Yi. Second Elder, aren't you overestimating the Tang sect too much? Could it be that Myriad Merchant Hall's defenses are so weak that the Tang sect can kill and kidnap people without anyone noticing? Han Yunxi said mockingly. Second Elder immediately shut his mouth. Third Elder said, "Your Highness, if there is a mole, who is it?" Why did they kidnap Miss Jing? Han Yunqi was shocked when she heard this. She blurted out, Uncle Chung. Uncle Chung? How is that possible? Everyone was confused. Han Yunqi anxiously asked, First Elder, where's Uncle Chung? Your Highness, even if there is a mole, it can't be Uncle Chung. When we returned yesterday, Uncle Chung left halfway. He went to the south to hire a new dealer. First Elder reminded her. Han Yunqi shook her head. She silently cursed herself for being too careless. She had underestimated Uncle Chung too much. In her panic, Han Yunqi almost blurted out Jia Dai's story. Fortunately, she stopped herself in time. She couldn't explain it clearly. If she could, she would have done so long ago. She couldn't tell the Council of Elders that she and Jia Dai knew each other, and that they had colluded to harm Uncle Chung and Myriad Merchant Hall. Could she? When she discussed the matter with Long Fei last night, all she wanted to do was beat around the bush to remind the head elder of a few things. Now, what should she do? Uncle Chung. Uncle Chung. Han Yunqi changed the topic. I don't suspect Uncle Chung. What I mean is that we hurry up and find Uncle Chung. With such a major incident, whether it's a mole or an external enemy, it shows that Myriad Merchant Hall's defenses are too weak. Third Elder and Fourth Elder should shoulder the burden of the casino. Let Uncle Chung come back to handle this. Han Yunqi's words were not as smooth as she usually was. Fortunately, the elders didn't sense anything strange. After all, this was a major incident at Myriad Merchant Hall. It was normal for them to be nervous. Princess is right. Men, hurry up and find Uncle Chung. Tell him that something big has happened here. Tell him to come back quickly. First Elder immediately gave the order. Han Yunqi was relieved. She thought that if Uncle Chung didn't kidnap them, then her and Jia Dai's plan would go on as usual. If Uncle Chung really did kidnap them, then Uncle Chung would definitely follow up. In this way, the Council of Elders would naturally suspect him. No matter why the kidnappers had kidnapped Ning Jing and Mu Ling, Han Yunqi only hoped that Ning Jing and the child in her belly were safe. Your Highness, why don't we bring Tang Li here and test him? The Tang sect should give us an explanation about the pear-flower storm needles. First Elder said. Han Yunqi couldn't imagine whether Tang Li would go crazy if he knew that Ning Jing was missing. She should give Tang Li a heads-up in private. However, at this juncture, it would be difficult for her to go to the prison in private. She could only hope that Tang Li wouldn't be too impulsive. Han Yunqi hid her worries and uneasiness in her heart. She said lightly, It's time to deal with it. Bring him to the council chamber. Tang Li, who knew nothing about everything, was very obedient and well-behaved. He let the guards tie him up and didn't resist at all. After being brought to the council chamber, he found an opportunity when no one was paying attention and even winked at Han Yunqi naughtily. A few days ago, Han Yunqi clearly felt that Brother Tang Li had grown up. However, at this moment, she found that he was as silly as a child. Han Yunqi's heart ached at the sight of Tang Li, who'd lost so much weight that he was almost unrecognizable and tied up. Ning Jing, where are you? Do you miss your Ollie? Sect Master Tang, please take a seat. The First Elder still prepared a chair for Tang Li. Tang Li's legs were tied up, so he could only hop over and sit down. He sneered, Haha, so the D clan still has manners of hospitality. Several elders were about to fly into a rage, but the First Elder stopped them with a look. He said, Sect Master Tang, you've been missing for so many days. The Tang clan should be anxious. Does that mean that First Elder is planning to let me go? Tang Li's face became serious. You have to return the money that my wife and I won. Otherwise, I won't leave. The First Elder's expression changed when he said this. On the other hand, the servant girls at the side secretly covered their mouths and laughed. Han Yunqi couldn't laugh. She said, Sect Master Tang, if you don't give the D clan an explanation for the pear-flower storm needles, don't even think about getting a single penny, let alone leaving this place. Tang Li's mouth twitched. Where's Ning Jing? Call her out. The pear-flower storm needles was my betrothal gift to her. If there's an explanation, it should be to her. Tang Li raised his eyebrows and swept a glance at everyone. He asked disdainfully, Who do you think you are? Did you ask for Ning Jing's permission before taking her betrothal gift? Ning Jing's betrothal gift should naturally be received by the Ning clan's patriarch. The first elder immediately retorted. The Ning clan's patriarch was naturally Ning Cheng. Fine, hand over Ning Cheng as well. I'll explain it to you and your sister. Tang Li naturally knew about Ning Cheng's disappearance. The first elder couldn't get either Ning Cheng or Ning Jing to come out. Tang Li's words more or less dispelled third elder and fourth elder's suspicions about the Tang clan's kidnapping. The first elder looked at Han Yunxi, imploring her to preside over the situation. Sect Master Tang, this princess can represent the D clan's patriarch. If you can give a clear explanation today, this princess will let you go. The moment Han Yunxi said this, the first elder and the others all looked over. Han Yunxi gave them a reassuring look and continued to say to Tang Li, if you can't give a clear explanation, then don't blame this princess for being impolite. Han Yunxi was paving the way for Tang Li. Tang Li deliberately sized up Han Yunxi. After a while, he said, fine, this sect master will give face to the Western Qin princess. Tang Li was silent for a while before speaking. His attitude actually softened. He said, first elder, this junior has a question to ask. I wonder if you can enlighten me. The first elder was on guard. Let's hear it. First elder, if you were drugged and raped by a woman, how would you deal with that woman? Tang Li's words were very serious, but the entire crowd fell silent. After a while, everyone except the first elder burst into laughter. Some couldn't help but laugh out loud, while others forced themselves to stifle their laughter. Han Yunxi looked at Tang Li with a helpless smile. The first elder didn't answer, so Tang Li asked again, first elder, would you kill that woman or marry her and torture her slowly? The first elder still didn't answer, but Tang Li didn't press him. He said, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium is rich and imposing with a large business. My Tang clan can't afford to provoke them. Fortunately, Miss Jing was willing to marry me, Tang Li, and give me a chance to wash away my humiliation. Hearing this, no one could laugh anymore. Everyone assumed that after Tang Li said this, Ning Jing would be tortured daily by Tang Li after marrying into the Tang clan. She would be forced to live an inhumane life. Only Han Yunxi knew that Tang Li was the one being tortured, ordered around, beaten, and cursed every day. Ning Jing was like a queen, being held, protected, and given in by Tang Li. Being spoiled by others required opportunities and good fortune. However, being willing to spoil others required opportunities as well. Han Yunxi didn't even know if Tang Li would have a chance to continue being bullied by Ning Jing. She quietly listened to Tang Li's confession. That's right, Tang Li wasn't explaining, but confessing. Chapter 9:30. Tang Li wasn't explaining that the pear blossom storm needles was faked. He was clearly confessing. Unfortunately, Ning Jing wasn't present, so Ning Jing couldn't hear it. Tang Li asked the second elder, Old man, do you know how to torture a woman? The second elder clenched his fists and was about to scold Tang Li for bullying a woman, which wasn't what a man should do. Who knew that Tang Li would say, make her fall in love with you, make her unable to leave you, and then make her scram. As soon as he said this, the entire place fell silent. Everyone looked at Tang Li in disbelief. Tang Li looked at the third elder. Old man, has a woman ever loved you? Why does she love you? The third elder looked embarrassed and avoided Tang Li's gaze. Tang Li asked again, do you know what kind of flowers your wife likes? What kind of cloth does she like to wear? What are the flavors of her 3 meals? What does Xiao Dian like to eat? Which shop's jewelry and rouge does she like? What size shoes does she wear? What kind of fragrance does she like to use for baths? How long will she laze in bed? Will her anger dissipate after being angry for a long time? As Tang Li spoke, he smiled to himself and continued, What are the days of the month when her temper is the worst? The entire place fell silent. Several elders lowered their heads. It wasn't clear whether they were embarrassed or ashamed. Han Yunxi couldn't help but think of Long Fei Yi. She suddenly missed him very much. Long Fei Yi knew everything about her, no matter how big or small. None of the servant girls were smiling now. They were all looking at Tang Li with adoring gazes. How could they have thought that the dignified Tang sect master would care about so many small things? How much did a man have to love a woman to be willing to spend time and effort to understand these things? Actually, love wasn't high and mighty. It wasn't above the common populace. Love was built up from many trivial things in daily life. The more trivial it was, the more beautiful it was. I know, over the past year, Tang Li's tolerance and compromises, Tang Li's doting and shielding of his own people were needless to say, and Ning Jing's unruly, crafty, mean, and cruel ways were also needless to say. With just one sentence, "I know everything," it was enough to show how much Tang Li had done, how much he had paid attention to, and how much he had understood in the past year. Everyone looked at him, waiting for him to continue. However, he ended the confession with one sentence. He said, "Unfortunately, I can't torture Ning Jing. She hasn't fallen in love with me yet, but I can't leave her." This kind of farewell was simple and real, yet beautiful and dreamy. Why couldn't Ning Jing hear it? Tang Li looked at Han Yunxi and asked seriously, "Han Yunxi, long before you met Ning Jing, the pearflower storm needles were empty. I used them all when I ran away from my marriage. If I didn't use them at that time, I would have married someone else. I was afraid that I couldn't marry Ning Jing, so I had to fake it. I have nothing to say about this. If Ning Jing doesn't want to go home with me because of this betrothal gift, then you don't have to let me go. Lock me up, and I'll eat and live here. I won't leave." Great Elder looked at Han Yunxi, and Han Yunxi also looked at Great Elder. Because of the disturbance at the casino and auction house, Tang Li's matter had been delayed. Back then, it was also Ning Chung who instructed Great Elder to put Tang Li and Ning Jing under house arrest. Ning Cheng's original plan was to kidnap Tang Li to threaten the cooperation between the Tang sect and Cloud Realm's arms trade, so that Ning Jing wouldn't have to waste time dealing with it. But now the situation had changed. Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi still had to cooperate, and the war between Eastern and Western Qin wouldn't start so soon. Ning Cheng wasn't here, and Ning Jing's whereabouts were unknown, so Great Elder didn't dare to make the final decision. Great Elder thought that since Tang Li really liked Ning Jing, it meant that Miss Jing had already succeeded in half. It shouldn't be difficult to facilitate the cooperation between the two sides. Now that the D clan was in trouble, it wasn't good to have another conflict with the Tang sect. It was better to let Tang Li go and tell him about Ning Jing. First, they could ask the Tang sect to help find her. Second, they could maintain their relationship with the Tang sect, which would be easier to talk to in the future. The head elder stepped forward and whispered his thoughts into Han Yunxi's ear. Han Yunxi didn't expect Tang Li to confess like this, but she could guess Great Elder's consideration. She secretly gave Tang Li a look, hoping to give him a hint to calm him down. Tang Li saw Han Yunxi's hint, but she didn't know if he understood her meaning. Han Yunxi said calmly, "Come, untie the Tang sect leader." Tang Li had been holding it in, but he couldn't hold it in anymore. He asked anxiously, "Where's Ning Jing? Where's my wife?" With this clever confession, Tang Li didn't need to hide his love, nor did he need to pretend. Now, he could openly announce to everyone that he liked Ning Jing. He even planned to bring Ning Jing back to the Tang sect and threaten the elders with the child in Ning Jing's belly. He was the only son of the 9th generation of the Tang sect. If those elders, especially his father, dared to touch Ning Jing, he would definitely make them regret it. Hurry up and ask Ning Jing to come out. If she wants a betrothal gift, I'll get to her. When she returns to the Tang sect, she can choose any hidden weapon she wants. Although Ning Jing's choice of hidden weapon was different from the cooperation between the Tang sect and the arms trade, Tang Li's words still made the elders' eyes light up. They were all annoyed. How could they have been so busy recently that they forgot about the Tang sect? If they had interrogated Tang Li earlier, perhaps Tang Li would have brought Ning Jing back to the Tang sect long ago, and the arms trade would have been completed very quickly. Now that Ning Jing was missing, how were they going to explain to Tang Li? Han Yunxi didn't speak for a long time, and the elders also looked at each other. Tang Li who was feeling happy, finally realized that something was wrong with Han Yunqi. He felt uneasy. What happened to Ning Jing? Or was there something wrong with his child? Tang Li was about to rush over and question her, but he was stopped by Han Yunqi's sharp gaze. Although the elders now believed in Tang Li, who could guarantee that this group of old men wouldn't think too much after Ning Jing's pregnancy was revealed? Ning Jing married into the Tang sect with a mission. If she was pregnant, she must be willing. Previously, when Ning Jing came to the three-way black market wearing a mask, Ning Cheng was already suspicious. If Ning Cheng was present today, Tang Li wouldn't be able to fool around so easily. At this juncture, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Tang Li knew Han Yunqi's concerns. He calmed down and gave Han Yunqi a reassuring look. He knew that if he didn't calm down, Han Yunqi wouldn't say anything. Sect Master Tang, Ning Jing. Ning Jing went missing late last night. Before Han Yunqi could finish speaking, Tang Li rushed over. What did you say? Several guards immediately came forward to stop him. Tang Li insisted on grabbing Han Yunqi's collar and questioning her. Su Donglin, who was hiding in the dark, broke out in cold sweat. Han Yunqi's brows were tightly knitted as she stared into Tang Li's eyes. She didn't stop reminding him and said anxiously, Ning Jing hasn't been feeling well these few days. The doctor wants her to rest quietly. Mu Ling has been accompanying her. Late last night, robbers killed the servant girl in her room and kidnapped her and Mu Ling. The Elders Guild is already investigating. I hope you can stay calm and investigate this matter with the Elders Guild. Han Yunqi emphasized the last sentence. She asked again, Sect Master Tang, if they can sneak into Myriad Merchant Hall and kidnap people, their martial arts must be good. Have you and Ning Jing offended anyone before this? Han Yunqi had already said so much. If Tang Li still didn't understand, Han Yunqi was at her wit's end. Fortunately, Tang Li still had a bit of rationality left. He looked at Han Yunqi and clenched his fist tightly. After a long time, he calmed down. Our Tang sect has never interfered in worldly affairs. Who could we have offended? However, as for Ning Jing, I don't know who she has offended in the past. Miss Jing, previously, head elder had just opened his mouth when Tang Li angrily rebuked. Didn't the guards be alarmed by such a big incident last night? Who was in charge of Myriad Merchant Hall's guards? Tang Li was just asking a normal question. He didn't know about Uncle Cheng's incident. However, unfortunately, Uncle Cheng was in charge of the D clan's defense. Myriad Merchant Hall was no exception. The elders exchanged glances. Although they didn't speak, they all had their own guesses. Head elder's eyes were complicated. He said, this matter was indeed due to the guard's negligence. Rest assured, Sect Master Tang, we will do our best to investigate this matter thoroughly. We won't let go of any clues. Sect Master Tang, please calm down. Since they kidnap people, they must have a request. Why don't we wait a few days? Perhaps there will be news, Han Yunqi advised. They should rejoice that the kidnappers had only killed the maidservant and taken away Ning Jing and Mu Ling. Otherwise, if the kidnappers had killed Mu Ling and Ning Jing last night, there would be no point in their discussion today. Thinking of this, Han Yunqi couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Her words angered Tang Li even more. He roared angrily, Han Yunqi, are Myriad Merchant Hall's guards all good-for-nothings? Tang Li didn't mean it, but Han Yunqi did. She took the opportunity to say to head elder, we must find Uncle Cheng as soon as possible. He must take responsibility for this matter. Head elder nodded repeatedly. I've already sent people to search for him. Sect Master Tang, please rest in the guest room. Once there's news, this one will immediately send someone to inform you. I'll just stay in Ning Jing's courtyard, Tang Li said coldly. Head elder couldn't wait to end this awkward discussion so that Tang Li could calm down first. He immediately had the maidservant take Tang Li away. Once Tang Li left, Han Yunqi also breathed a sigh of relief. She was about to leave, but something like this happened all of a sudden. How could she leave now? No matter what, Ning Jing and Mu Ling were lost in her hands. Everyone was focused on Ning Jing, and no one mentioned Mu Ling. As for her, not only was she worried about Ning Jing, but she was also worried about Mu Ling. Ning Jing and Mu Ling were in different rooms, but they were both kidnapped. Why? Was it because Mu Ling discovered that Ning Jing was in danger and rushed over to help, but was unable to do so? Or was it because the kidnappers were also planning to kidnap Mu Ling? Although Mu Ling was impulsive and reckless, if it didn't involve her Chi brother, she wouldn't be so foolish and stubborn. If she couldn't beat the kidnappers, she would definitely ask the guards for help. Therefore, Han Yunxi was more willing to believe that the kidnappers were not only targeting Ning Jing, but also Mu Ling. There might be more than one kidnapper. Thinking of this, Han Yunxi suddenly thought of someone. She anxiously asked, "Head Elder, is there any news about Deacon Jean in the past 2 days?" Head Elder didn't pay much attention to this matter. The attendant beside him quickly replied, "Deacon Jean was being chased by Kangon Bank for his debt. The day before yesterday, he hid in Willow Flower Alley. I heard that the people from Kangon Bank are also looking for him." Chapter 9:31. Han Yunxi knew about Willow Flower Lane. It was the most chaotic place in the three-way black market, with all sorts of people. No one could control it, so it was basically a lawless area. Deacon Jean had actually gone there to hide. Just how hard was Kangon Bank pushing him? Long Fei Yi didn't need the small amount of money he owed. Han Yunxi thought that Long Fei Yi probably wanted Deacon Jean to be pushed so hard by Kangon Bank, just like her, because of Deacon Jin's background. At this time, Han Yunxi didn't have time to think about this matter. Saving people was more important. Send someone to look for him and spread the word that if he's willing to come back, Myriad Merchant Hall will help him pay off his debt. Han Yunxi said seriously. This First Elder hesitated. The Council of Elders was stingy to begin with, not to mention that the D clan's finances were tight. If the robbers are only after Ning Jing, then they can just kill Mu Ling. Why take Mu Ling away as well? Han Yunxi asked seriously. First Elder finally realized this. You mean that Deacon Jean is here to seek revenge on Mu Ling? But Deacon Jean and Miss Jing have no grudges. Why take Miss Jing away? Fifth Elder hurriedly said. There should be more than one robber. It's only a guess now. Hurry and spread the word. See if Deacon Jean comes. Han Yunxi said seriously. Now that they didn't have a single clue, they could only wait for the robbers to come and extort them while using the elimination method to investigate all possible suspects. Just as they were talking, someone from the auction hall came to deliver news of victory. This was the only consolation in the midst of all the troubles. The elders were very gratified and had more trust and expectations for Han Yunxi. The casino and auction hall can't be delayed, especially the reopening of the casino. Third Elder and Fourth Elder will cooperate fully. We must reopen the casino as soon as possible. Everything in the auction went smoothly, and the Second Elder handled everything by himself. The Fifth Elder was in charge of handling Ning Jing's matter, so he had to calm Sect Master Tang down. Great Elder, there is still no news of Ning Cheng. Don't forget about this matter. Han Yunxi assigned the focus of the work and let the Fifth Elder deal with Ning Jing, which could save her a lot of trouble. Moreover, with the Fifth Elder's temper, he would soon suspect Uncle Cheng. After everything was settled, everyone went about their own business. Han Yunxi immediately went to see Tang Li. At this moment, Tang Li was sitting on Ning Jing's couch, stroking the pillow and silk quilt that she had used before, savoring the fragrance that she had left behind. When Han Yunxi came in, she saw Tang Li clutching the silk blanket tightly and pressing it under his nose. After everything was exposed in Medical City, he had never hugged her again. Tang Li didn't even notice Han Yunxi coming in. He was immersed in longing and self-blame. He had already given in so many times. Why couldn't he give in a few more times? If he had given in a few more times and told her that he liked her, they wouldn't have fallen to this point. Han Yunxi came to the bedside and looked at Tang Li's pained face. She remained silent. At this time, any comforting words that were too pleasant to hear were pale and powerless. After a long time, Tang Li murmured, "Sister-in-law, how many times do I have to give in before Ning Jing and I could be together?" He was willing to give in to her and the D clan. Han Yunxi smiled bitterly. She and Long Fei Yi had been moving forward all this time, trying their best to complete the 100 steps. However, Tang Li and Ning Jing were giving in. Tang Li gave in. Ning Jing was pregnant. Ning Jing betrayed Ning Cheng. Ning Jing wanted to escape from the D clan. Why didn't they give in? Don't think too much. Ning Jing is very smart. As long as the kidnappers have a request, she will definitely be able to turn misfortune into blessings. Han Yunxi wasn't comforting him. She was speaking the truth. Han Yunxi then analyzed Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jin's suspicions in detail for Tang Li. She instructed, I will arrange for Fifth Elder to be fully in charge of this. You must stay calm and cooperate with him. Tang Li looked up. Sister-in-law, I'm scared of the child. Before he could finish speaking, Han Yunxi coldly interrupted him. Enough. Don't hide here and be afraid. No matter what the situation is, let's find them first. What's the use of being afraid here? If you were afraid, why did you let Ning Jing get pregnant in the first place? Pregnancy was never something that could be done by one person's will alone. If Tang Li didn't bully anyone, would Ning Jing have a chance? Han Yunxi's words were very unpleasant and grating. However, these were the only words that could truly wake Tang Li up. Tang Li fiercely jabbed his face and stood up decisively. I will go to Willow Flower Alley now. I am familiar with that place. Ever since Long Fei Yi took charge of East Origin Hall, Tang Li often went to Willow Flower Alley. When he went to find people, he was much more efficient than the people sent by Myria Merchant Hall. Han Yunxi secretly sighed. She was now hoping that Ning Jing and the others had been kidnapped by Deacon Jean. Deacon Jean only wanted money. Things that could be settled with money were much simpler. Tang Li was about to leave when Han Yunxi hurriedly stopped him. Your brother is in East Origin Hall. If you need help, go find him. Also, help me pass a message. Just say that there has been a change in the plan. Ask him to wait a few more days for me. Hearing this, Tang Li turned back and said seriously, Sister-in-law, regarding the 100 Poisons sect matter, you all will act according to plan. You don't have to worry about me. Han Yunxi couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. She waved her hand and told him to leave quickly. However, Tang Li became stubborn. Sister-in-law, this is my own matter. You and my brother don't have to worry about it. I won't drag you all down. Han Yunxi rolled her eyes at him. You're thinking too much. Since you've come out, you'll have to take responsibility for Ning Jing's matter. The one I want to save is that damn girl Muling. Of course, Tang Li knew that she was speaking out of anger. Thus, he also said harshly, Sister-in-law, you want to drag my brother down again for Muling? You want my brother to wait again? Do you know that as long as the grudge between Eastern and Western Qin is not resolved, my brother won't be able to sleep peacefully? Can't you spare a thought for my brother's sake? Tang Li only wanted to provoke Han Yunxi. How could he know what kind of unhappiness Han Yunxi had with Long Fei Yi? Han Yunxi couldn't help but think of Long Fei Yi's lonely eyes. She asked Tang Li indifferently, do you think so too? Tang Li had never seen Han Yunxi look so pitiful. He wondered if anyone else had scolded her like this before. Since he had already provoked her, Tang Li was determined to be the villain to the end. He asked, don't you think so too? Sister-in-law, my brother has never waited for anyone. After he met you, do you know how many things have been delayed because of you? My brother dotes on you, so you should feel sorry for him too. At first, Tang Li did it on purpose, but as he spoke, he began to recall memories of his childhood. He muttered to himself, Sister-in-law, my big brother's never had anyone dote on him since he was young. I even thought he'd never know how to dote on someone in this lifetime. I never thought that he would dote on you this much. Han Yunxi could guess that Long Fei Yi's childhood wasn't good. She had asked before, but Long Fei Yi wasn't willing to talk about it. Tang Li, how did Long Fei Yi's father and mother pass away? Han Yunxi asked in a low voice. Because of the perplexing butterfly illusion, Tang Li didn't avoid it. He felt that there were some things that Han Yunxi should know. It had to be said that he had his own selfish motives. He was biased towards his brother and East Qin. If Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi caught by yanching on this trip and confronted each other about the grudges of the past, they would really meet on the battlefield. He hoped that Han Yunshi would give in and show mercy. Perplexing butterfly illusion? How did Consort One get her hands on it? Han Yunshi grew nervous. The perplexing butterfly illusion was the poison sect's long-lost treasure, something that everyone was fighting over. Even Bai Yanqing was searching for it. So how did Consort One get her hands on it? There were rumors back then that the perplexing butterfly illusion had reappeared in the poison sect, causing countless people in the poison world to fight over it. Many remnants of the poison sect also flocked to the poison sect. Medical City did their best to hide this matter, but it was useless, Tang Li said indifferently. So they went looking for the perplexing butterfly illusion too? Han Yunshi asked. Tang Li shook his head helplessly. Uncle and Aunt Wan had been searching for the perplexing butterfly illusion for a long time. When Aunt Wan was in charge of the Tang sect's poison sect, she studied its history and discovered records of the perplexing butterfly illusion. She and Uncle found a few poison masters to go with them to the poison sect. It took them 3 years to find the perplexing butterfly illusion. One of the poison masters who went with them betrayed Aunt Wan and leaked information about the perplexing butterfly illusion, causing a huge commotion in the poison world. Han Yunshi couldn't believe it. This was the first time she'd heard about Long Fei Ye's parents. So, when the poison world flocked to the poison sect, the perplexing butterfly illusion was already in Consort Wan's hands. Tang Li nodded. Many people in the Tang sect and the Bailey army believe that Uncle died from injuries. Some say he fell ill. Actually, very few people know the true cause of Uncle's death. You know, Han Yunshi grew nervous. They found the perplexing butterfly illusion in a cave back then. Uncle was injured by the poisonous gas it sprayed out. Tang Li sucked in a deep breath. His body was never found. The Tang sect's reclining dragon peak is actually a cenotaph. Han Yunshi's heart suddenly clenched. Then Consort One. Aunt Wan was by Uncle's side back then. She saw him die with her own eyes. Tang Li's voice was choked with emotion. He remembered his mother crying the entire time she told him this. Aunt Wan's personality changed drastically after she came back. She placed all her hopes of reviving the empire on my brother. In those years, she practically trained my brother as a death warrior. Later on, she committed suicide, Tang Li said indifferently. Han Yunshi recalled the scars on Long Fei Ye's body and felt her heart clench. If Tang Li hadn't said anything, how could she have imagined that someone like him would go through such torture? Han Yunshi had pitted Consort One just a moment ago, but now Han Yunshi hated her to the core. What was a death warrior's training? That was to disregard all consequences and be prepared to die. They had to undergo high-intensity, high-difficulty training. That was no different from forcing someone to their death. How old was Long Fei back then? However, Tang Li's next words caused Han Yunshi to break down even more. Tang Li said, Aunt Wan committed suicide in front of my brother. I was there at the time too. She said a few words to my brother. Is she crazy? Han Yunshi roared. Maybe, Tang Li said indifferently. Han Yunshi didn't want to hear any more, but she had to. She had to understand everything that happened back then. That was Long Fei Ye's past. Chapter 9:32. Before Consort One killed herself, she left Long Fei Yi with 2 words. One was, Fei, remember how your imperial father and I died. The other was, Fei, remember the meaning of your life. After Tang Li fell silent, Han Yunshi's heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe. She couldn't imagine how much Long Fei Yi had endured. It wasn't a burden on his shoulders, but in his heart. Only by knowing how much he'd suffered would she know how much he'd conceded. Only then would she know how much he'd struggled and suffered when he chose to accept her, love her, and hide her identity from her. But he hadn't mentioned a word about any of it. It was as if none of it had ever happened, and she knew nothing about it. Compared to her responsibilities as the princess of Western Qin, Long Fei Ye's burden was a true inner torment. Seeing Han Yunshi's red eyes, Tang Li realized he'd said too much. He was about to speak when Han Yunshi grabbed his sleeve and said, Tang Li, I'll leave Ning Jing and Mu Ling to you. And don't tell your big brother that I know so much. Thank goodness this woman was still rational. Tang Li exhaled. Understand. Don't worry and go. Han Yunxi didn't send anyone else to tell Long Fei Yi to change the time. She gave herself an hour to calm down and collect her emotions. Once she'd buried all her pain in her heart, she left to take care of myriad merchant hall's affairs. Head Elder, have you notified everyone about the alliance? Han Yunxi asked. I've already discussed it with the elders yesterday. It's better to wait until after the princess leaves. Princess, please don't worry. The Council of Elders will take care of everything below, the head elder said seriously. Han Yunxi relaxed at his words. A complicated look flickered past her eyes before she said, after notifying everyone, spread the news as well. I want all of Cloud Realm Continent to know that East and West Qin are working together. The great elder hesitated. Han Yunxi coldly said, if we don't take this chance to confront East Qin, could it be we'll let East Qin keep slandering our Western Qin royal family? I want the world to know that the civil war in the Great Qin Empire was not the fault of Western Qin. Influenced by Han Yunxi's imposing manner, First Elder also became excited. Yes, this subordinate will do as you say. What the First Elder didn't know was that Han Yunxi had already made a very ruthless decision. Princess, about Ning Jing, the Great Elder asked tentatively. According to the D clan's rules and style, Ning Jing's matters weren't as important as the Wind clan's. Even if Ning Jing's life was in danger, the Wind clan's matters were still the priority. But the Great Elder still hadn't figured out the princess's style or temperament after spending time with her. More importantly, it wasn't just Ning Jing who was missing, but Mu Ling-er as well. Thus, he didn't dare to act on his own and could only test the waters. Ning Jing's matters have already been handed over to Fifth Elder. Keep an eye on him and have him cooperate with the Tang clan head. I've already made an appointment with Long Fei Yi. We'll set out in the afternoon, Han Yunxi said seriously. Princess, please be careful. This subordinate has arranged for 2 guards to protect you, the Great Elder said. Han Yunxi didn't refuse, but said, wait by the door. There were still 2 more hours before Long Fei's appointment, but Han Yunxi had already taken care of everything. If this was the past, she'd definitely take a bath and prepare some dry rations before leaving the house. But how could she have the mind to do that? She wanted to see that man immediately and tightly hug him. How could he not tell her anything? Did he want to hide it from her forever? How could he bear this much? Being separated from Long Fei Yi so many times, even being separated for several months, it didn't feel as bad as these 2 hours. Han Yunxi sat in the wheelchair, sitting alone in the room. She was waiting for news, waiting for him to send someone to pick her up. She already couldn't calmly think about anything. Finally, there was a knock on the door. Your Highness, the East Qin Crown Prince has sent someone over. Han Yunxi suddenly looked up and saw the door open. Standing at the door was no one else but Su Donglin. Princess of Western Qin, please. Su Donglin was neither servile nor overbearing as he rushed to push Han Yunxi's wheelchair before the servant girls could. The Great Elder waited on one side. As soon as Han Yunxi left the room, he signaled for the 2 guards to follow her. They escorted her all the way to the back door before he spoke. Your Highness, take care. Don't worry. Long Fei you won't dare to act rashly when everyone in the world knows. Han Yunxi even gave the Great Elder a bewitching potion before she left. Most likely, he'd spread the news of the alliance between East and Western Qin to every corner of Cloud Realm Continent very soon. The 5th Elder and the 4th Elder also came to see him off. In front of Su Donglin, they remained silent and did not say anything. At the back door, all of the elders stopped. Su Donglin escorted Han Yunxi to her carriage while the 2 guards followed them all the way to the 3-way Black Market's west gate. Han Yunxi finally saw the familiar carriage. It was a large and sturdy carriage parked there with Gao Bohu on one side. Long Fei Yi should be inside. Behind a large carriage were 2 smaller ones. The 2 guards assumed that the small carriage was prepared for Han Yunxi, but Han Yunxi knew that Bailey Mingxiang was inside. In the end, they were still at the 3-way Black Market's gates with guards following them. Su Donglin quickly invited Han Yunshi to the small carriage. "Princess, this way please." Long Fei Yi sat in the large carriage, expressionless as he studied a specially made map. He heard Su Donglin's voice, but didn't bat an eyelid. As soon as Han Yunshi boarded the small carriage, Bailey Mingxiang didn't dare to sit. But the carriage was too small for her to stand up, so she was at a loss. Han Yunshi didn't speak, but pressed down on her shoulder to make her sit back down. Bailey Mingxiang didn't know that there were guards following them outside, so she didn't understand why the princess had run over to her place. "Hurry up and go. We need to find a place to rest before it gets dark. This princess doesn't want to sleep in the wilderness," Han Yunshi urged. Although the person in question didn't speak, Gao Bohu and Su Donglin didn't dare to slight Han Yunshi. The two of them immediately set off. With a flick of their whips, the horses ran extremely fast. The two guards sent by First Elder rode their horses and followed closely behind Han Yunshi's carriage. How would Han Yunshi deal with these two obstructing guards? Shake them off? Su Donglin was waiting for his master's orders. Su Donglin guessed that Her Highness would speak first, but who knew that after they were far away from the three-way black market, Han Yunshi would speak. "Su Donglin, stop the carriage." Su Donglin immediately pulled the reins and slowly stopped the carriage. He called for Gao Bohu to stop the carriage as well. The two guards were puzzled. They dismounted and were about to go forward when they suddenly heard Han Yunshi shout, "Long Fei Yi, come over here." The two guards immediately froze. Su Donglin and Gao Bohu were shocked. What was the princess doing? Bailey Mingxiang was also shocked when she saw the guards from Myria Merchant Hall. Actually, Long Fei Yi was as surprised as they were. He naturally had to send these two guards away, but now was not the time. He had to keep them for a few days so that they could send a few messages back to Myriad Merchant Hall. After reassuring the Elder Council, he would deal with them. They had just left the three-way black market, and the sky was not even dark yet. What was Han Yunshi trying to do? Was she in a hurry? When did she become so clingy? Thinking of this, Long Fei Ye's lips curled into a faint smile. He did not say anything and allowed Han Yunshi to be willful. Even if her willfulness caused a huge disaster, he would be able to clean it up for her. "Long Fei Yi, come over here. Are you coming over or not?" Han Yunshi shouted again. Long Fei Yi very obediently got off the carriage and walked over. He wasn't dressed in black today, but loose white robes. His ink-black hair was tied up casually, giving him an air of lazy nobility. He was like a high and lofty god who couldn't be offended. Even Uncle Gao and Su Donglin couldn't help but steal a few more glances at him, to say nothing of the women. Bailey Mingxiang didn't dare to look, her head bowed. Just the sight of his boots and robes was enough to make her heart bow and submit to him. Han Yunshi was smiling so widely that her eyes curved into crescents as she watched Long Fei Yi walk closer. Long Fei Ye's attire today reminded her of the time when they were still living in the Duke of Qin's estate in Tianning's capital city. She would often run into him in the courtyard, dressed in snow-white robes as he walked lazily through the winding corridors, either strolling or passing by. She'd stared at him in a daze many times. Under everyone's gaze, Long Fei Yi walked to the front of the carriage. The two guards on the side exchanged glances, unsure whether they should move forward or keep watching, ready to protect him at any time. Her Royal Highness had so rudely called Long Fei Yi off the carriage, so it couldn't be a small matter. But Han Yunshi's next words almost made them fall to the ground. Han Yunshi said, "Long Fei Yi, hurry and carry me over." Everyone was stunned. Even Long Fei Yi was caught off guard, but when he saw Han Yunshi reach out her arms, he decisively picked her up from the carriage and carried her in a princess carry. "Princess! Princess Yi!" The two guards were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Han Yunshi lightly waved her hand and shot out two needles. Caught off guard, the guards were hit by the needles before they could dodge. "Either your entire body festers and dies, or follow me obediently. I'll give you the antidote tomorrow," Han Yunshi said coldly. When they heard the words festers, the two guards were so scared that their legs almost turned to jelly. They didn't dare to ask any more questions and hurriedly knelt down. Your Royal Highness, please spare our lives. We'll listen to your Royal Highness's orders. Long Fei Ye's smile widened. He hugged Han Yunxi tightly and returned to the large carriage. How could outsiders know what happened in the carriage? Uncle Gao and Su Donglin continued to drive the carriage. The two guards trembled in fear and followed obediently. Bailey Mingxiang let down the small curtain. She bent her knees and hugged them tightly with her arms. She was so lonely that it was as if the whole world had forgotten her. In the carriage, Long Fei Yi had just placed Han Yunxi on the seat. Just as he was about to ask, Han Yunxi suddenly hugged him very tightly. He clearly felt that something was wrong with her and asked gently, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I just want to hug you." Han Yunxi's eyes were no longer smiling, only heartache. Long Fei Yi lifted her chin and forced her to look up at him. "Han Yunxi, who bullied you?" Han Yunxi said, "Long Fei Yi." Chapter 9:33. Long Fei Yi, let's never be apart, okay? Han Yunxi asked seriously. No matter what the reason was, she didn't want to leave him, and she couldn't leave him again. Who bullied you? Tell me. This was what Long Fei Yi was concerned about. Who else could bully Han Yunxi to this extent? She was about to cry. If she wasn't afraid of Long Fei Yi's questioning, she would have buried her head in his arms and cried bitterly. But why was she crying? He was the one who had gone through all that torture and suffering, not her. It was useless for her to cry until she was blind. She could only hug him tightly and feel the reality of him. Luckily, he had made it through. Luckily, he had become stronger. Seeing that Han Yunxi's eyes were red, Long Fei Yi was angry. His tone suddenly turned cold. What happened? Who bullied you? Tell me clearly. No. She avoided his hand and buried her head in his arms again. I just missed you. I missed you. Han Yunxi wasn't a clingy woman, and she wasn't a woman who would act coquettishly and express her love for no reason. Seeing her like this, Long Fei Yi had to suppress his anxiety and anger. He bent down, cupped her face, and asked patiently, "Be good. Tell me what happened." Han Yunxi shook her head and hugged him again. She hugged him tightly, and Long Fei Yi couldn't pull her up no matter how hard he tried. Long Fei Yi couldn't do anything about it. Just as he was about to call Su Donglin over to ask, Han Yunxi let go and covered his mouth. Long Fei Yi, I want to give birth to your children. Give birth to a dozen children, okay? Han Yunxi asked seriously. Long Fei Yi was stunned at first, and then he couldn't help but laugh. Of course it was okay, but he had to figure out what was wrong with this woman first. Why? Why are you suddenly? He smiled bitterly. What happened to you? I felt terrible when I saw Ning Jing and Tang Li. Han Yunxi could only come up with this excuse. Su Donglin had already reported everything that Tang Li had said in Myriad Merchant Hall today. Tang Li's actions also surprised Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi could predict that once Tang Li found Ning Jing, he would definitely fall out with the elders of the Tang sect. What's there to be upset about? Long Fei Yi didn't understand women, but he trusted Han Yunxi. He said unhappily, "Don't worry, you won't get lost. I want to give birth to your child, okay?" Han Yunxi asked again. Long Fei Yi had never seen Han Yunxi so serious. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. He nodded without hesitation. "As long as you're willing." However, he added, "Wait until we come back this time." Han Yunxi could understand his misgivings. But Han Yunxi blurted out, "I want it now." Now, Long Fei Yi was slightly stunned. Soon, he looked Han Yunxi up and down with interest. Did she really understand what he meant? Seeing Long Fei Yi's suggestive gaze on her, Han Yunxi immediately blushed. Only then did she realize that she had spoken too quickly. "I'm not." She was about to explain when Long Fei Yi interrupted her. "Are you sure you want it now?" "No, I'm not." Han Yunxi couldn't explain herself. Long Fei Yi deliberately dragged out his tone. "Sure, as long as you're willing." Han Yunxi was embarrassed, angry, and amused at the same time. She hurriedly explained, "I'm talking about children. I want children, not me." Long Fei Yi finally couldn't help but laugh. He didn't forget to rub her bangs affectionately. He asked, "If you don't want, how are you going to have children?" Han Yunxi's face turned even redder. She couldn't refute him. She really lost to him. Her gloomy mood was also amused by him amidst her crying, laughing, and anger. How could this be? She was the one who felt sorry for him and wanted to hug him. In the end, he was the one who comforted her and coaxed her. Long Fei Yi, how exactly should I love you and protect you? Fortunately, Long Fei Yi didn't pursue the matter. Otherwise, Han Yunqi really didn't know how to answer him. She might as well just dig a hole and sell herself. At night, they stopped by a small stream at the foot of the mountain. Uncle Gao found a big tree to stop the carriage and started a fire. Su Donglin went to catch some game, and Bailey Mingxiang helped to roast it. Long Fei Yi carried Han Yunqi to the stream and helped her change her bandages. The two imperial guards stood at the side, trembling with fear. They didn't know when the poison would take effect, and they just hoped that the princess would give them the antidote as soon as possible. How do you plan to deal with those two imperial guards? Long Fei Yi asked in a low voice. He meant that the two imperial guards knew something they shouldn't know, and silencing them was the best choice. Han Yunqi waved at the imperial guards and asked them to come over. The two imperial guards immediately ran over and knelt down respectfully with their heads bowed. What did Great Elder tell you? Han Yunqi asked. Great Elder wanted this subordinate to report everything that happened here. He wanted the two of us to protect the princess, so we can't. The guard stole a glance at Long Fei, but didn't dare to say anything else. Can't what? Long Fei Yi actually spoke. The ice-cold voice scared the imperial guards, and the two of them didn't dare make a sound. Are you going to speak or not? Long Fei Yi's voice was filled with warning. The imperial guards trembled for a while before saying, We can't let the East Qin Crown Prince approach the princess at all. Seeing Long Fei Yi's dark face, Han Yunqi secretly laughed in her heart. She wanted to warn the two imperial guards, but who would have thought that Long Fei Yi would say, You also saw it. It was the Western Qin princess who told this prince to go over. When these words were said, the two imperial guards shook their heads and waved their hands. No, this subordinate didn't see anything. Her Highness and the East Qin Crown Prince went in separate carriages. This subordinate has been guarding the princess the entire time, and the East Qin Crown Prince has never approached the princess at all. You're certain? Long Fei Yi asked again. The two imperial guards quickly nodded. Certain. It's just like this. This subordinate will report everything to Great Elder. These two imperial guards weren't stupid. With Long Fei Yi's warning, Han Yunqi didn't need to explain anything. Very quickly, the imperial guards blew a whistle and summoned a hawk. Under Long Fei Yi's gaze, they reported the truth to the Great Elder. Han Yunqi threw the antidote over. Remember to ask me for the antidote in 2 days, otherwise. Han Yunqi deliberately didn't say the following words, scaring the two imperial guards so much that their faces turned white. After taking care of these two imperial guards, they were much more relaxed on the road. It also dispelled the Great Elder's final doubts. After resting for half an hour, Han Yunqi's group set off again. Long Fei Yi had already made arrangements for the 100 Poisons sect, so they didn't have much time to waste on the road. Before leaving, Long Fei Yi couldn't help saying, I thought you wouldn't take care of those two imperial guards that quickly. Han Yunqi didn't try to figure out the meaning behind his words and directly replied, I was impatient. Long Fei Yi never thought that this girl would be this direct. He raised a brow as he looked at her, feeling that something was wrong. It was a good thing that Han Yunqi came over in time. She brought over the map he had made and diverted his attention. Han Yunqi looked at the map while chatting with Long Fei Yi. She didn't mention a single thing about what she knew about Long Fei Yi's childhood. She could only be assured in his embrace. While chatting, she unknowingly fell asleep. That night, they crossed over the mountains and headed southwest. However, they didn't know that two people had crossed the mountains at the same time and were heading northeast. They brushed past each other. These two people were none other than Gu and Gu Beiwei. If it wasn't Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi working together, then there was only one person in this world who could kill Bai Yanqing's poison guards, and that was Gu. The moonlight shrouded the mountains and forests. Gu and Gu Beiwei rode separately on their horses and galloped through the mountains and forests. An enchanting woman in red, devastatingly beautiful. Her luxurious and wide robe fluttered in the wind. Her robe fluttered in the wind along with her horse's galloping gallops, covering the entire mountain, the sky, and the moon. She was flamboyant, wanton, and delightful. The other was dressed in snow-white robes. He was like an immortal, gentle as water. He was the white that the ostentatious red beside him couldn't cover up, the white that couldn't be overturned. Even if the entire world was in a hubbub, he would still be as indifferent as the spring breeze, but he could be gentle to all things. The two men galloped through the mountains. Their figures swam like dragons, winding through the small paths in the mountains. When the first ray of sunlight brushed past their faces, they stopped at the foot of the mountain. "Dr. Gu here." Gu tossed over a canteen of water. After galloping through the night, he showed no signs of fatigue. Under the illumination of the sun, he instead seemed even more spirited. Gu Beiwei caught the canteen and drank a few mouthfuls. He smiled. "You could just call me North Moon." "Forget it. I'll call you Low Moon. Your surname isn't Gu." Gu raised an eyebrow and replied with a question. According to the secret letter Gu Beiwei had sent over, he searched through all the suspicious valleys and finally found North Moon, saving him. Along the way, Gu Beiwei also told him the entire truth behind his cooperation with Long Fei Yi. Ever since he learnt the truth, he had not said a single word. He galloped all the way here with Gu Beiwei. It had already been 2 days and 2 nights without resting. Fortunately, he had cured Gu Beiwei's poison a long time ago. Otherwise, with Gu Beiwei's body, he probably would not have been able to indulge himself like this. Names are just a form of address. Whatever, Gu Beiwei did not mind. After curing the poison, his complexion was clearly much better than before. During the past 2 days and 2 nights, he could have called for a stop, but he did not. Instead, he accompanied Gu Beiwei to the end. Galloping and galloping was a form of catharsis. Some people relied on this method to heal the pain in their hearts. He would never forget Gu's resplendent smile when he saw him. Nor would he forget the moment when Gu's eyes dimmed when he learnt the truth behind his cooperation with Long Fei Yi. When he saw him, Gu was filled with passion. He said to him, "Dr. Gu, come with me. Let's save the poisoned girl together. We'll help her revive her kingdom and conquer the world." After learning the entire truth, only now did Gu speak. Gu Beiwei was unable to understand where he stood on the grievances between Eastern and Western Qin and whether he trusted Long Fei Yi. However, he definitely felt disappointed. Gu thought for a while before waving his hand impatiently. Forget it. The poison girl calls you Dr. Gu, so just call her that." He looked towards the north and yawned. "The 3-way black market is up ahead. We'll be there in a day's journey." Gu Beiwei passed the canteen over and said indifferently, "Seventh young master, if the princess is willing to trust the East Qin crown prince." Chapter 9:34. Gu still thought that Han Yunxi had been placed under house arrest by Ning Cheng, while Gu Beiwei still didn't understand Cloud Realm situation or the various powers. Before Gu Beiwei could finish, Gu interrupted him. "That's their business. It has nothing to do with me. Ning Cheng tricked me. This matter isn't over." A complicated look flitted past Gu Beiwei's eyes, but he didn't pursue the matter. Perhaps Gu was only willing to discuss this matter with Han Yunxi. Now, seeing Han Yunxi was the most important thing. With Long Fei Yi's personality, how could he allow Ning Cheng to put Han Yunxi under house arrest for so long? Unless Han Yunxi would rather be put under house arrest by Ning Cheng than forgive him? But even if she did forgive him, how could Han Yunxi face the heavy responsibility of reviving Western Qin? Ignorance is blameless. She still didn't know who she was or what she was shouldering. She could still be herself. Once she knew everything, could she still be as carefree and unrestrained as before? Gu Beiwei didn't know what choice Han Yunxi would make, but he was certain that Han Yunxi's choice would determine his own. "How do you plan to deal with Ning Cheng?" Gu Beiwei asked. "It's best if he dies at Bai Yanqing's hands. Otherwise, if he dies at my hands, he'll feel even worse." Gu said coldly, Let's go, Gu Beiwa said faintly. No matter what, they had to see the princess first. The two of them quickly sped off in the direction of three-way black market. Gu really was a heartless thing. Even now, he still hadn't thought of Mu Ling. At this time, Mu Ling was also in the forest, forced to head north. In the carriage, Ning Jing was half lying with a pale face, her legs bound. Mu Ling was sitting beside her, her hands tied behind her back. Suddenly, the carriage jolted and the two of them unconsciously leaned forward. Ning Jing, be careful. Mu Ling cried out in alarm. Without hesitation, she fell in front of Ning Jing to block her. Not to mention Ning Jing's body. Even a normal pregnant woman wouldn't be able to withstand such a jolting carriage. Mu Ling fell flat on her face, but as soon as the carriage stabilized, she immediately raised her head and struggled for a while before sitting up. Ning Jing, are you all right? Are you all right? Ning Jing was scared out of her wits as well. Fortunately, she didn't fall, or else the consequences would have been unthinkable. It's nothing. She was still panicking. That's good, that's good. Mu Ling was 100 times more nervous than her. Unexpectedly, just as she finished speaking, the carriage jolted again. Fortunately, it was a small jolt this time, and not a big one. However, a small jolt was still a jolt. If it continued, Mu Ling didn't dare to imagine the consequences. I'll tell them, Mu Ling said angrily. You're not allowed. Ning Jing cut him off harshly. Your belly. Before Mu Ling could finish speaking, Ning Jing's sharp gaze stopped her. Ning Jing said coldly, I'm 100% sure that those two are definitely from the D clan and are very familiar with Myriad Merchant Hall. No matter what, I can't let them know that I'm pregnant. But Mu Linger couldn't stop worrying. No buts. Ning Jing was very decisive. Mu Ling threw caution to the wind. Then I'll tell them that I'm pregnant and tell them not to be so jolted. Ning Jing couldn't help but roll her eyes. She lectured, You're a virgin. Aren't you afraid of ruining your reputation? I'm not afraid. It doesn't matter, Mu Ling said magnanimously. Why? Ning Jing didn't understand. She had drugged Tang Li because she had no choice. She would rather bear the infamy than be married off to those old men from large conglomerates. Because the person I like doesn't like me. So, no matter how good I am, it's useless. No matter how bad I am, it's the same. Mu Ling didn't feel sad at all when she said this. It was as if she was talking about someone else's reality. Ning Jing only realized today that Mu Ling was quite interesting. However, she still said rationally, those two aren't simple. They're not that easy to fool. They'll find a doctor to take their pulse, and they'll know what's going on. At least we can fool them now. They're heading north, probably to Northern Li. It'll take them at least 3 to 4 days to get there. They won't be able to find a doctor. Mu Ling asked seriously, Ning Jing, I can guarantee you that if the journey continues for another day, you won't be able to keep the baby in your belly. These words dispelled all of Ning Jing's worries. Mu Ling was right. She couldn't even take care of the baby for the next few days. What was the point of thinking about the future? Then, I'll have to trouble you. Ning Jing avoided Mu Ling's gaze. It's my duty. I owe you. Mu Linger smiled before she started shrieking. Oh, Ning Jing quickly covered her ears. This scream was simply too much. The carriage soon came to a stop. A masked man in black lifted the curtains and said angrily, What are you screaming for? Ning Jing tried very hard to identify this voice. Unfortunately, she still couldn't figure out. The men who kidnapped her and Mu Ling were two masked men in black. That night, they broke into the house while they were sleeping and only alerted the servant girl who was on night duty. She thought that she was the only one who was kidnapped. However, when she was taken out of the three-way black market, she realized that Mu Ling had also been kidnapped. To be able to sneak into Myriad Merchant Hall so stealthily, know where she lived, and know that Mu Ling was in her courtyard, they were definitely insiders of Myriad Merchant Hall. As for who they were, Ning Jing really couldn't guess. If she hadn't experienced it herself, she would find it hard to believe that there was a spy in Myriad Merchant Hall. These two men in black had used a voice-changing technique. so she couldn't tell anything. She only knew that one of them was old and the other was young. The one who kidnapped her was the old man. He sat outside the carriage the whole way and was extremely fierce towards her and Mu Ling. The one who kidnapped Mu Ling was the young man. He was in charge of driving the carriage and spoke very little. So far, he hadn't spoken more than 5 sentences. Mu Ling's eyes were immediately filled with tears. "I beg you," before she could finish, the old man in black slammed the curtains down and ignored her. Mu Ling was unwilling to give up and begged again. "I beg you to change the carriage. If this bumpy ride continues, the child in my womb will—" Before she could finish, the man in black who was driving the carriage suddenly stopped. He lifted the curtains and glared at Mu Ling. Mu Ling and Ning Jing were very surprised, but they couldn't care less. Mu Ling cried, "Sir, I beg you. The child is innocent. If anything happens to my child, you won't be able to get any benefits by kidnapping me." Sob sob. Needless to say, when Mu Ling was acting, her big, watery eyes were especially moving. The two had no choice but to believe her. The old man in black snorted coldly. "Goose child?" Mu Ling really hadn't considered this question, but being misunderstood like this, she nodded without hesitation. "It's Chi brothers. I beg you, as long as you can save this child. No matter what you want to do, Chi brother will definitely agree." "Interesting. Ha!" The old man in black looked at the young man. The young man's eyes were gloomy and cold. "Pregnant before marriage. Shameless. What a slut. Goose still doesn't know that Ling is pregnant with his child. If you can save this child, no matter what you want to do, you'll have another bargaining chip." Ning Jing also spoke up. The black-robed old man seemed to waver, but the young man remained unmoved. Ning Jing quickly added, "The two of you, this is the wilderness. If Ling miscarries and can't find a doctor, 2 lives will be lost. Don't regret it." Mu Ling started to cry. "Chi brother," sob sob. "Chi brother, where are you?" Originally, it was just an act, but crying like this suddenly touched the wound in her heart, and her emotions couldn't be controlled. The more Mu Ling cried, the more heartbroken she felt. Her cries of "Chi Gij" were enough to break anyone's heart. Not to mention the 2 men in black. Even Ning Jing almost believed her. The old man in black laughed and said, "Don't even think about changing carriages. Pick the road." Unexpectedly, the young man said coldly, "Serves you right if you die." With that, the curtains were fiercely lowered. However, after a while, the carriage didn't jolt as much, and it slowed down considerably. Mu Ling secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She winked at Ning Jing and made funny faces. Ning Jing's nervous mood finally relaxed, and she was amused by Mu Ling. Ning Jing said in a low voice, "Mu Ling, I think the guy who kidnapped you has a grudge against you." Mu Ling was slightly startled. Ning Jing analyzed the situation to her in a low voice, and Mu Ling immediately called out a name. "Deacon Jean. If there was a grudge, and it was a member of Myriad Merchant Hall, then it could only be Deacon Jean. If it was him, then why did he kidnap you?" Mu Ling asked in a low voice. This was also something that Ning Jing couldn't figure out. Judging from the interaction between the old man in black and the young man, they didn't seem to be superior and subordinate, but more like collaborators. Ning Jing really couldn't guess who in Myriad Merchant Hall would kidnap her and be familiar with Deacon Jean. He's not going to sell us to Winter Crow Kingdom as slaves, is he? Mu Ling was frightened. Winter Crow Kingdom wasn't famous for its war horses, but for its slave trade. "You and I can't get a good price in Winter Crow Kingdom, but we can extort a sum from Myriad Merchant Hall and Han Yunshi," Ning Jing said seriously. As they chatted, the carriage suddenly stopped. This time, it was a young man who came in. Coldly, he looked at Mu Ling and didn't speak for a long time. Even Ning Jing was scared, but Mu Ling was much bolder. She stared back with wide eyes, not to be outdone. "I'm very valuable." "Yes, very valuable." The young man sneered. What do you want?" The young man didn't answer. He suddenly picked up Mu Ling and sat her down. He untied her, only binding her feet. Then, he threw her a kettle and 2 cold steamed buns before leaving. Mu Ling was overjoyed. After confirming that the young man wouldn't come in again, she hurriedly used the hot water in the kettle to soften the cold steamed buns. Then, she handed them to Ning Jing. "Eat quickly, quick. I can't eat that much." "You eat too," Ning Jing said in a low voice. "I'll only give you 1, no more." Mu Ling said as she wrapped the other steamed bun in a handkerchief and hid it well. "I have to save this to save my life. God knows what they want." Ning Jing's heart, which had been cold since she was young, suddenly warmed up. It was so warm that she wanted to cry. Meanwhile, in Myriad Merchant Palace, Tang Li and the 5th Elder had already locked onto Deacon Jean as the suspect. He didn't even show up to repay his debt. Who else could it be other than him? Tang Li's expression was malicious. He searched all over the brothels, but couldn't find Deacon Jean. The 5th Elder was about to speak when a servant came in to report. "5th Elder, Clan Master Tang. There's news of Uncle Chung." Note to the reader: yesterday's seniority was wrong. Tang Li should be called Consort 1, Aunt 1, not Aunt 1. Mo seems to have been wrong about seniority. Go face the wall. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.